laws are debated, truths often denied. Scrutiny sharp as the southern winds bite. In Aotearoa's halls we spark the fight. Scrutiny, read the stakes are high. Questions that sort of pierce the sky. Democracy's fire never runs dry. In Aotearoa we ask the why. The echoes of history paint these walls, where whispers of change answer the calls. Aotearoa beats bold and strong. We challenge the wrongs to make it belong. They say it's a game, but we see the cost. Every decision, a line that's crossed. From the mountains high to the ocean blue, the people watch the power accrue. Scrutiny, read the stakes are high. Questions that sort of pierce the sky. Democracy's fire never runs dry. In Aotearoa we ask the why. The echoes of history paint these walls, where whispers of change answer the calls. Aotearoa we ask the why. The echoes of history paint these walls, where whispers of change answer the calls. The Aotearoa we ask the why. We ask the why. Debate like a
Probably helps if I push the button. Right, good evening everybody. Sorry we are running behind. I was having technical difficulties. Tonight I am your host Stacey. Ray, how are you doing?
Fairly well, thank you, Stacey. Good to hear you so excited for tonight's show.
Fake it till you make it, mate. Right, and sorry, I'm so blurry. I've tried cleaning my camera. I don't know what is suddenly going on with it. Apparently technology just hates me today. But anyway, today we are covering the 2025 to 26 Estimates for Vote Social Development, Hearing of Evidence, Select Committee. I'm not completely sure what vote means in this context, but I guess we'll find out as we go. Right. Are we ready then?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. Push the button. Push the button. And push the button.
We have Mrs. Upston and Mr. Potaka here for the first 15 minutes. Mr. Potaka, for any relevant questions. So if you want to make a brief opening comments, and then we'll go to Trish.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I'll make some introductory statements and then I shall hand to my colleague, Minister Potaka. So it's great to have the opportunity to meet you and go through the 2025-26 estimates for vote social development. Clearly, my highest priority as the Minister for Social Development and Employment is to support more New Zealanders into work, while ensuring those who generally can't work are able to draw on state support if they need it. Having a job, we know, is the best way to lift themselves and their families out of hardship. And our families, communities and economy are better off when more people are in work. I'm of course committed to the target to reduce the number of people on the job seeker benefit by 50,000 by 2030. And in spite of the constrained economic circumstances, I have through Budget 2025 secured significant funding aimed at achieving our goal of moving more people off the job seeker benefit into work. Our Budget 2025 confirms funding for MSD's multi-year transformation program to modernise New Zealand's welfare system. This is a program of work that was started under the previous government and continuing under ours. The initiative will overhaul systems, simplify processes and redesign services to be more people-focused. Investment will modernise technology and business operations, boosting efficiency, reducing costs and minimising risk. The program aims to enhance service effectiveness, improve government efficiency and allow MSD to better target support to those in need. Transformation is expected to deliver savings of about $1.9 billion over the 10-year period from a combination of administrative savings and getting people off benefits and into work from the 27-28 year. This transformation project will help deliver better benefits to MSD and will ensure that MSD is better working with partners and reducing red tape so they can focus on helping people and will significantly reduce the overall risk of system failure. Budget 25 has an Invest to Save initiative that allocates $343 million over the 4 years to maintain effective MSD employment support services, aiming to save $490 million overall. This includes funding 490 MSD staff for 2 more years to deliver case management and redeployment services, helping people into work and reducing the reliance on benefits. It also supports the Welfare That Works plan with community job coaches and bonuses for those staying off benefit for 12 months. Serving 70,000 clients at any time, the initiative leverages proven employment programs to meet the job seeker reduction target and deliver a net saving of $147 million to taxpayers. Our government is refocusing support for young people to encourage work or study over a reliance on welfare. From July 27, a parental assistance test will determine eligibility for job seeker support and emergency benefit for single 18 and 19-year-olds. This aims to strengthen the financial incentives for youth to pursue employment, education or training. The policy reflects the belief that young adults who are not working or studying should be supported by their parents in the first instance, not the taxpayer. This change addresses the concern that under 25s on job seeker support are projected to spend on average 18 future years on benefit, which is a 49% increase from 2017.
Hold on. Okay, I have to pause there. First of all, hi Soraya, thank you so much for joining us.
And this is Michael. I guess he's joining us too.
Michael, that was it. Thank you. Hi, good to see you guys. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you? Sorry, my technical difficulties.
Don't worry, we started late because I also had technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Great. So
Right.
I missed the last little bit. So where are we?
Yeah,
at?
so I wanted to stop it because people who work in stats have proven that this statement is incorrect. This is words. Where have my words gone?
That's not what it breathes.
Oh, what? Sorry, Michael?
I thought, is it a misnomer? I'm trying to remember if I've heard.
It's a projection. It's not a true figure. Based on modelling statistics, this could happen in an extreme circumstance. So this is not a true statistic. This is just what they are playing on to make people think that young people are lazy and don't want to work for their money.
Okay.
Well, you've got to have opportunities, don't you? You can't just work on a minimum wage to do a dead-end job.
Exactly.
So I didn't quite hear the statement. So what was she claiming?
That people who go on a benefit under the age of 25 are on average going to spend 18 years on a benefit.
Uh,
I haven't seen anything like that. Have you?
Again, that's an average. That's not a median, or that's the thing. That's a sum divided by the number of people involved. That's not really a good interpretation of the data, I would say.
Yes, and it's also an extreme modelling prediction. This is worst case scenario. In actual fact, people who go on a job seekers benefit under the age of 25 are on average spending a maximum of 2.5 years in total until they turn 25 on a benefit of some sort.
I just don't think kids coming out of school and even like, you don't just necessarily go straight into your job, do you? Like the thing is,
No,
is
exactly.
I think it takes 10 years to sort of, well, even if you want to be highly educated, you can get highly educated in something and go out and then finally get to work in that dream job, and you never end up working in that job. So there's that
Exactly.
period, isn't it, where you just chop and change.
Exactly. And seventh formers, or sorry, what is it now? Year 13s finish school in November. University training doesn't start up again until January. What are they supposed to do in the meantime?
Well, if I finish school in November, the first thing I'd be doing is I'd be enjoying the summer, and I'd go away on holiday, and I'd go and do stuff because I'm out of school. No one's going to make me go into a job when I'm out of school. I wish if I could do my time again, I'd spend 2 or 3 years just tripping around, trekking around. I wouldn't get a full-time job. But that's what I did. I don't actually subscribe to the model that we're better people if we just go straight out of school and straight into work. What you got to find yourself.
But if you could have some part-time work during school, that is very healthy. I understand what you did then.
And the other thing that used to be summers used to be where you'd go fruit picking in my generation and things like that. And those sorts of jobs aren't there anymore because they're roboticized, or there's all of these additional laws to be able to do that. So you can't actually track around and do that sort of thing.
Yeah, you can't just bugger off to the Hawke's Bay for 3 months, pick fruit, and go back and get a full-time job or start studying anymore.
Well, the biggest problem is Mr. Luxon's mates in the Hawke's Bay would probably want $330 a night to stay there because you're not allowed to freedom camp, are you? So, you're not going to make, even if you make $100 a day, it's cost you $300 to stay the night in the luxury hotel.
Exactly. This is a very good point. But anyway, we should
One more
get
thing.
back to the video. Oh, yes, right.
This statistic may be including the times when many citizens went on some kind of MSD support due to lockdown and associated pandemics. So they probably haven't adjusted their statistics for that. And so projecting that because of this steep increase in people requiring government assistance.
Exactly. But right, let's continue on with whatever nonsense comes out of her mouth next.
It's a good start.
We've also passed the Social Security Amendment Bill, expanding the traffic light system to better support beneficiaries in preparing for or finding work, with 2 new financial sanctions introduced, money management and community work experience. From the 20th of October, we're adding 2 more sanctions, upskilling and job search requirement. Obligation failures will now carry over for 2 years instead of 1. From the 1st of July, job seeker clients must reapply every 26 weeks, which will enable more frequent engagement with MSD. This is all about improving employment outcomes. There are encouraging signs that the welfare reset and stronger job seeker obligations are yielding results. Between July and December 2024, 33,147 people cancelled their job seeker benefit due to finding work, which is a 22% increase over the year prior. In early 2025, over 2,000 additional job seekers found employment compared to the last year. While the overall number on benefits has grown, MSD's focus on employment and proactive staff engagement are helping more people transition into jobs by combining accountability with strong support. Budget 2025 also addresses the ongoing cost of living by updating the accommodation supplement boundaries to reflect urban changes offset by the revised eligibility for homeowner support. We're extending funding for food banks, the Kickstart Breakfast Program and Kids Can Jacket initiative. And the Refreshed Child and Youth Strategy will focus on early childhood support, reducing hardship and preventing harm. Budget 2025 builds on previous savings by enhancing service efficiency and reducing costs. MSD will use income data to improve payment accuracy, which is something I know we've talked about in the past, supporting fiscal sustainability while maintaining client services. Mr. Chair, I'll hand over to my ministerial colleague for this first part of the questions.
Tēnā koe, e te minister. Tēnā koe te minita, Louise, me ngā mihi ka meha hoki o te wao puanga, te kairuri o te tau tawhito, me te wao matariki te kauhuaki i te tau hau. And matariki and puanga, greetings to all.
Okay. Before we continue on with that, does anyone have any comments on what else Louise has said?
I think the standout thing is client. Okay, so these aren't clients. These are young people that predominantly find themselves in places that don't have great job opportunities, you know, and they're not a client. They're a potential taxpayer. They're going to be paying tax most of their life. They've already paid for their education, and you know, I think the thing is they're making a business out of it, and it's carrot and stick and all the rest of it. Those statistics, 33,000 people, how many of those went to Australia? Because we've had a lot of people that have buggered off to Australia. How many people went back to study? They said they went on a job. I think that's bullshit because there wasn't jobs. You know, like we haven't had 33,000 jobs suddenly appear since they started doing that. So I think that should have been cleaner and clearer, because maybe even if there was 33,000 people that went off jobs, the national government came in and created another 50,000 people out of work by cutting all of these jobs in the public sector. Now, it's just bullshit. It's terrible to think that these kids are going to get battered around. Like, you're better off to say to them, hey, go live your life, have a bit of fun. Like I said before, like the thing is if you're going to do this, like this is what puts people into a system, and the next client they become of is the Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
That's
You know, social services isn't about making clients, because we just become a client. Are we going to be students? Are students going to become clients?
Well, I know when my marriage split up and then I was on a benefit for a while, they made it so difficult because they'd turn around and they go, oh, well, we overpaid you, even though I disclosed everything, nothing had changed, but they hadn't accounted for something. Then I owed them money for even though I was already struggling. And then you try and get a job and you can only get a part-time job. And then it's like you've either got to survive on a 25-hour-a-week job and get the benefit, or they don't actually let you transition because they're just so intense in their following up and statistics, and it's like there's no flexibility, and there's like people and make sure that they're into good employment.
Also, I know that some of those statistics of people coming off of job seekers benefits are people who have aged out and gone on the pension, people who have entered into a relationship and therefore no longer qualify for a benefit, and people who have died. So no, they are not just looking at people that have gone into full-time gainful employment. They are looking at any means necessary to get somebody off a benefit.
And you know why this hurts me is because when I was 14 or 15, I found out that I could make $900 in 4 hours by interpreting census data for target marketing and putting it visually on a map. And I wasn't driven in that way because I used that to buy the computer, and then I had my friendships and relationships and thought about the next step. And learned that I should have made the money while I could. But this is an absolute, who are they paying? Who's not doing their job? Oh no, they're just ruining the actual chain of everyone should take part in the bigger running of house. Never mind that. Let's just pay, cut all of the skilled work support so that people without educations get paid more, and those that are educated leave so that they can get paid what they deserve. as well. I mean, we all kind of deserve the same wage sometimes, whatever. But like, if you're gonna study that hard and get the fucking technical work that no one else can do, etc., whatever. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm deep frustration right now. Please take the floor.
Well, it's hard not to be frustrated at it. These are people that are they're going through a hard time, whether that's just getting into the workforce or whether it's just, trying to get back on their feet after they lose their job or what they wanted to do didn't work out. And it's like, why are we hating on people that are in a bad spot? It's quite a different thing if you've got somebody and they're using fake IDs and they're claiming for benefits or something. That's benefit fraud, but that's a completely different thing.
It's very creative. Anybody that does that, full marks. The thing that's really peaked me off is the same time they're doing this. This has already come out that the people that are struggling the most in the world are from 18 to 26. These are the people that feel most disconnected.
Yeah.
This is like a huge international study. 200,000 people took part in it. It's massive, and so this is the people that like National woke up in the morning and I thought, these people don't vote for us. Let's kick these bastards in the ass. Now, it's really sad because it's the easiest group to just back off. And things are going to get hard. Things are going to get really tough. They were already tough. Food, I grow food. I've got food around me, but it still costs us a lot of money when I go to the supermarket for the shit I have to buy. But when I look at what food costs, and I think, how the hell? And so if you actually wanted to eat properly right now, you've never got enough money when you're a young person to eat properly. So you're only going to be eating shit, and then, we're a country that is like, we've never been making so much money out of food. And it makes us cry as farmers to see that our food's so damn expensive and we're so poorly fed. That's something they could do something about, and do something to actually make food affordable in this country.
Well, you've got to get rid of the monopoly supply chain off the supermarket.
Yeah, that's the number one thing, man. That she just said, "Oh, well, we're going to give you breakfast, and then kick your ass all day."
Yeah.
It's like
giving kids in low decile schools breakfast free of charge is a fantastic idea. There are a lot of children that go to school in the mornings without having had breakfast simply because their parents cannot afford it for all the reasons that we've been listing. And it's not just because the parents are too lazy and too addicted to substances to go and do the groceries. It's because they are choosing between heating their home and eating for the week. They are choosing between drying their laundry or having a shower. It's ridiculous, and nobody should ever have to live like that. But you can't say that you're trying to help children in schools with food when you have the current school lunch debacle going on.
Oh yeah, see, I just glazed over that. Yeah,
it's disgraceful. Like my oldest sister, before she moved out of the region, her kids were in a school with the school lunch program, and this is prior to it being made over. And the girls loved it. They thought it was the greatest thing in the world, right? They got butter chicken. They got that's the only one I ever remember because that's what they were most excited about. And now my sister has moved out of the region, obviously taken her kids with her. And the girls are now in a school that is not in the school lunch program because they have a garden to table program at their school because it is a very rural school. And my sister has said that she is so glad with the changes that her kids are not eating that shite.
Hmm.
It's
They grow food of this. I think the local one in Silverstream has a plan there. Like they've been gathering resources. They haven't opened the department yet. I love that idea. Absolutely, that's my 10-year plan is get to a place I can do that for the community over the next 10 years.
Yeah, in the magic, hey, it's like if you can teach somebody how to grow food,
Mm.
like
Yeah, I'm horticulture trained. Yeah.
yeah.
I'll tell you another thing that's like it really sort of got me today. I've got a really dear friend, Lee Somerville, and he had quite a silly accident out fishing, but he was a horse trainer, and he was one of the guys that taught the horse riders on Lord of the Rings. So there was 2 or 3 of them, and like they had like 300 horses, and they taught about 400 of the cast how to ride and things like that. So he's a real character. Anyway, he's on a school bus, and they did a thing on him on TV, I think last night. But we don't have TV, so I didn't get told about it. But I can just imagine it. And all the kids love going with Lee because Lee goes and picks them up, and he sings with them all the way. Like it's a far out rural trip, and he just makes school so much fun. And all the parents said, "This is all really good, but the kids don't want to go to school with us anymore. They only want to go to school with Lee."
Hey, at least the kids want to go to school.
Yeah. And that thing, like so many kids I talk to, they really hate school, and like that's what's wrong with the system. And I'm not saying that everybody's a Lee, but there were some teachers at my school that made it fun. Some real old bastards too, but there were some that made it real fun. And I think that's the thing is like this is just more pain. Like you got to move people towards pleasure, not pain. You can't, you can't just keep making pain. You've got to make pleasure somewhere.
Yeah. Well, speaking of putting people through pain, unfortunately, we haven't even gotten through this introduction yet, so we should probably move on. Let's go.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you as the Associate Minister of Housing, in which I support Minister Upston around various operational mahi related to the social housing register and emergency housing, a massive challenge for many of our communities and whānau, and absolute focus to ensure particularly children, but all whānau come out of emergency housing situations and into warm, dry whare. I'm not going to take too long for these opening remarks, and I'm happy to take questions or comments as they fall.
Thank you, Minister Secure.
Thank you, Ministers. Minister Potaka, you're only here for 15 minutes and you do 7 minutes for opening statements, so I'll get straight to the point. Have any frontline providers told you that homelessness is increasing because of the changes of policy that we've brought in?
Frontline providers have a variety of comments. They're very happy with the amount of tamariki that have come out of emergency housing, being over 3,000. They've also said that we've been very clear around our expectations regarding responsibilities with emergency housing.
Providers told
And
you
some of them,
that homelessness has gone up because of your policies? We've got 8 minutes. Please answer the question.
Mr. Chair, I'd like the opportunity
Yes,
to
please,
actually
please,
speak without being spoken over. If I have that opportunity, I might be able to get directly to those questions, which actually exist in a context. The various community housing providers and others have observed a number of things, including some observations around homelessness, if you are meaning rough sleeping. They also observed, as did the census, the amount of people rough sleeping between 2017 and 23 increased remarkably.
Has frontline providers told you that homelessness has gone up because of the policies that you have brought in?
If the member is asking about rough sleeping, which is part of a homelessness description, alongside uninhabitable housing and a range of other matters, they have again announced that yes, homelessness, rough sleeping increased significantly between 2017 and 2023, and there continues to be levels of homelessness. They've also observed that there are various pathways for people who are homeless to access housing, whether or not that's rapid housing, transitional or other matters.
Well, I'll ask it another way then. Frontline providers have said to your face that because of the changes you brought in, homelessness has gone up, haven't they?
Some frontline providers have said that it may be the case that the gateway changes to emergency housing have contributed to homelessness.
So all you're willing to say is it might be the case?
No, that's what the provider said. That's what the provider said.
$1 billion of savings as a result of changing the criteria for emergency housing. and yet homelessness is increasing, according to frontline providers, at unprecedented rates.
No, that's what the providers said, and that's announced in homelessness insight reports that we gather.
And isn't it the case
That's
that
right.
in between census reports, the only information that you have as a government, and indeed any government, to gauge levels of homelessness is the feedback from frontline providers? So if you were dismissing that direct feedback, how can we have confidence that you are adequately addressing the need that is growing?
The member inaccurately depicts the variety of sources that we have around a variety of housing matters, including homelessness. Councils and others also provide us with feedback.
Has homelessness grown? since
New
you-
question, Ricardo.
I'll have a question because that was on my list. Has homelessness grown since you've been a minister?
Well, I think it's important to very, very clearly clarify whether or not you're talking about uninhabitable housing, overcrowding, people staying in motels, which has gone down by 85%, as you know, including children, or rough sleeping. There's a range of different forms used to define what you're talking about.
I'll move on to my supplementary then. Is everyone within genuine need being supported into emergency housing?
Well, we know absolutely clearly that we have a view, and that is carried out and implemented by officials, that those with a genuine need for short-term stay and temporary accommodation in most towns in New Zealand are able to access that within the responsibilities framework that applies.
We've heard from many organisations that work with survivors of sexual and family violence who have expressed concerns that people who they're working with are being turned away by work and income when they're trying to support people into emergency housing. Is that acceptable?
I think, again, what is the context on a specific case that you are describing? If it is the case that people are turned away from emergency housing as a result of being categorised as contributing to their situation as victims of violence, then that is not a practice that we condone. We have said this on various occasions that you cannot use that as a basis at an official's level, as a basis for a decision to turn people away from the process of applying for and progressing in
Can he
emergency
make
housing
his
applications.
expectations then clear to victims of sexual and family violence around what work and income should do should organisations go to MSD in need of emergency housing?
My expectations have been clear to the
I
officials.
meant your commitments, Minister.
My expectations around that particular issue have been clear to officials. You cannot turn people away as a result of contributing to the circumstances because they are victims of sexual or domestic violence. That is not a legitimate reason to turn people away from progressing through an emergency housing application process.
Question, Maureen.
Thank you, Minister. Given that we haven't got much time, I will be quick. It mentioned before about the reduction in fewer families being in emergency housing. That target was, the government's target was reached in December last year. So is there a new target that you've set? And if so, where will the funding be redirected to?
The target of 75% over 6 years was reached within 12 months of establishing, or around 12 months of establishing that target. Well, we've gone beyond the target and we've seen around 85% of households, reduction in 85% of households living in emergency housing. Re-establishing or resetting another target is a matter that continues to be under discussion within our offices.
Supplementary, Ricardo.
Why do you think, then, Minister, that there's a gap between what you're saying right now and what frontline organisations are telling us? Because the feedback seems to be worlds apart.
Well, perhaps the member would like to explain that gap and what he's actually asking.
Why are frontline organisations telling us that his reforms are leading to growing homelessness when we've got you as Minister championing those very same reforms and then making claims that the vast majority of people are better off, when frontline organisations are ringing alarm bells over growing homelessness as a direct result of these savings?
If the member's report is referring to the growing homelessness between 2017 and 23, when it went up over 10%, then I think I understand where you're coming from. If you're talking about rough sleeping, which again went up by well over 10% between those years, that's a different discussion. We've also reported to you once in this conversation and in various documents which have been issued under Official Information Act requests that various provider insights have said it may be as a result of the changes to the gateway for emergency housing, but there are a lot of other contributing factors, whether or not that's the economy being in dire straits in a very difficult space, the supply of rentals, and a range of other factors.
Thank you, Minister Potaka. We have questions for the Minister of Social Development now. We've come to time.
Thank you.
He has grown stoic after the last time he flaked on camera.
Adam, before we get into all of that, I just want to bring notice to this. The current Prime Minister has not had to escape poverty. No one has belittled the Prime Minister tonight. He comes from inherited family wealth, and that's why he is able to own multiple properties and be such a big business landlord. So no one has belittled him for working his way out of poverty, which he has not had to do in the first place. But anyway,
Sorry, I'm
Um,
context. Mr. Commenter.
sorry, Ray, can you speak up a little?
Sorry, Mr. Commenter, Geoffrey. I missed the context.
Was that about John Key? Is it? We haven't brought up John Key, have we?
No, we haven't brought up any Prime Minister, current or past, tonight.
Fierce.
He did. He said his mates, his rich mates in Hawke's Bay, maybe.
Oh, yes, but that's not talking about him personally. But
Well, that was interesting, the back and forth banter there, where I don't understand why, if it's a detailed thing, why are they not staying in longer and getting to the bottom of something that's so important?
Oh no, because he's shifting the question, Buzz. It's just politicking. It's not actually operating as a select committee because he's refusing to answer the question, and McNulty's doing a very good job on him, but he's not a strong performer in the House, which is sad. This guy, I mean McNulty is, but this is a really critical role, and he actually gave McNulty everything that he asked him for. He could have just said it right from the get-go. Yeah, I think that's probably right, because that's exactly what he said in the end. And he could have just saved so much time. It's like we're not here to fuck spiders, But
that we are not.
it just took ages. What I sort of feel like, because we're in one of those towns, so we're when I say that, I mean we're in a town that a lot of hoteliers converted their motels into the emergency housing thing.
Oh wow!
And because it was actually quite lucrative for them, because these things got renovated every year, and they got paid quite a lot of bit of money. But as soon as this government came in, and they looked at the terms and conditions of the contract, like I've got a friend that was doing it, he said it's just not worth it. So what's actually happened is the amount of places that people could go has gone from, say, if it was 20 or 30,000, it's gone down to about 100 or 1,000. So what's the outcome? People are going to be sleeping in their cars because there's nowhere to sleep. And then the council-owned things that he spoke about, that's all very well too, but that could actually get a bit more context. The government doesn't want to pay the actual market rents for those. So we've got about 30 of those that got built in an area, which is supposedly social housing. Those rents actually end up more than what the rents would be just any old house that's around at the moment. So those things are empty because even people with jobs can't afford to pay that much rent and live in, So, but those were made on the premise of the previous government's policy, and they would have been fine. They would have been rented out. So it's really a supply and demand thing. There's too much demand, not enough supply, and it's got nothing to do with their policy. But, it's awful to think that they're just so casually talking about this. This is a bloody cold winter so far. For people that are sleeping in their cars, that's horrific. It's horrific. It's not like Australia where it's warm. This is a bastard of a country to sleep rough. And for them to treat it like that it's sort of where he's like going back and forth and they're going homeless or sleeping rough. Like, what's the bloody difference, mate?
There is no difference. There is
No,
absolutely no difference.
Yeah.
Whether you are sleeping rough, sleeping in a car, sleeping under a bridge, sleeping on your friend's couch, sleeping out the back of a motel, it does not matter. You are still homeless.
In the context of the question, it might have.
Sleeping in a tent in a campground because you can't afford to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Sleeping in a long stay cabin in a campground for $400 a week because you can't afford anything else, or you don't have the credit score to pass the credit check for a rental. It's
a distinction without a difference. And so it possibly matters for their stats or what category you fit in, but it actually doesn't matter for the lived experience of the people in the community. because it's just desperation.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, a lot of rough sleepers do seem to wholly choose that at a certain point in their life. I've met a few that legit seem to be fit and healthy in their routine. Others, like I just visited Lower Hutt Queensgate yesterday, and immediately there's someone lying down in the sun on both sides of the road, and we're like, okay, whoa.
Yeah, but blanket man always used to get arrested about this time of the year and get about 2 months. 2 months,
Yes.
like, you know, feed for a while, and then
In the warm.
I remember one time he went up for sentence and the judge knew what he was doing, and so he swore at the judge to get another month because otherwise he'd get out too early.
Yeah, I met him at court once too, actually. It was very intriguing.
Oh,
So
he was definitely a very interesting man. Wellington is a much sadder place without him. And Bucket Man, actually.
yeah.
Right, but
yeah.
we should attempt to move on.
He didn't need that. The answer of the question didn't need to fight the question. The question was clear. Yeah.
And the other thing is, it used to be relative, you could live on a single income. In Levin, it was where the manufacturing was done or growing things, and there was always jobs, and you could live off 1 or 1.5 income.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you can't do that anymore. And so even people that have got jobs are struggling to keep housing.
So defining most vulnerable, it's got to be done somehow, but really free up the resources, stop firing people, just do it, pay it back later. Make people happy, they'll generate more, they'll pay more tax. Come on.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I think there used to be a thing in New Zealand where it was a jobs guarantee. And so even when you lost your job, you got paid and you did public work. And so it was considered a human right in New Zealand to have a job until Rogernomics came along.
Okay.
And what they found was not only that when you lost your job, the poverty actually reduced your IQ about 10% because you were so busy stressing and worrying about how you were going to get through the day, you were actually making poorer decisions. And so it's not like you're not stupider, but you're living in terror and survival mode. And so that actually reduces your ability to make good, sensible decisions. And so everything they're doing is actually contributing to people making worse and worse decisions because you're putting them under more and more duress. And I think the one I've got that talks about it is a book by Wolfgang Rosenberg, who was an economist here.
Write that down.
Wow. Okay, we should try and continue. But please let me know what that book is again later so that I can write it. Looks like Ray might be writing it down already. Cheers. All right, let's go.
All right, thank you very much. First question.
So why have you not continued the time-limited funding for Tama Rangatahi, despite that program exceeding many of its performance expectations? And you're now seeing actually 100 less people being supported as part of this program as it was doing so a few years ago.
It has been continued.
And why are you not continuing time-limited funding? Why are you basically delivering 500 less people into employment as part of that program?
Yeah, so
at a time of growing unemployment.
So let me explain, as I said in my opening remarks, the Invest to Save initiative that we have undertaken, which is ensuring that the most effective intervention in supporting people into employment, which is case management, is continued. Those staff were also time limited, and so we have extended it for a couple of years. What we do know, evidence tells us that case management is the most effective, but of course we have continued and will continue to deliver a wide range of programs because we do know that different programs work better for different groups of individuals.
But you accept that in August 2024, you announced time-limited funding for this very initiative with the goal of supporting 3,000 young people into employment. MSD only supported 2,500. And now your target has now been reduced from 3,000 to 2,500. At a time of growing unemployment, and with the minister talking a lot about how young people could stay on a long permanent benefit, why are you not investing on employment services initiatives like this one with a greater amount?
Well, we are investing. If I look at community coaching, for example, and the new bonus payment that will come in, they are exactly the sorts of interventions that are being funded with this Invest to Save. It is exactly what it says on the tin, greater investment to get greater employment outcomes, and using a range of evidence-based interventions. The one that is the most successful is case management, which is why we continue to invest in it. There will be just shy of 70,000 job seekers and beneficiaries who will be in that case management this financial year. And so it's about choices. I fully accept that. But what we do want to do is ensure that taxpayer funding is going to the initiatives we know work. And sometimes that means altering the balance of what is funded and what isn't. And that's what we're doing with the Invest to Save.
Just following on that comment then, we have heard from MSD in previous reporting that the frontline was basically at overcapacity. That came from MSD itself. You just said that case management was the most effective way of supporting people into employment. Is MSD frontline still at overcapacity?
No, so we've got 3 pieces of work that have been confirmed under Budget 25. One is the Services for the Future. That was previously called Te Pai Tāwhiti. And as I said in my opening remarks, started by the previous government. That's around driving greater efficiencies and simplifying.
Then why did MSD say that the frontline was oversubscribed?
If you want me to answer the question, you need to wait for me to finish answering the question. I said there were 3 initiatives. I've spoken about one. The other 2, automatic decision making, which again started by the previous government with the automated decision making standard passed in 2022, increasing the use of that so that tasks that would have been administratively burdensome for staff are being taken care of in an automated way. And the third is income charging. Income charging means that we improve the accuracy of payments made to beneficiaries, reduces rework, reduces conversations then around overpayment and around debt. So those are 3 initiatives that are all about supporting our frontline and making MSD more efficient and better fit for the future.
So why the supplementary follow?
Just a quick one, Minister. Invest to Save is novel and new. Could you describe how that could make the efficiency for MSD much more achievable?
Yes. So what we've done is based the Invest to Save, which is a very new approach. It was fair to say it was MSD that championed this approach in Budget 24 with emergency housing. So we have picked it up in the employment space with another of the government targets, which is to reduce the number of people on the job seeker benefit. It's about how do we ensure we have the level of investment up front to improve outcomes over time. And that is why the 490 case managers that previously would have concluded at the 30th of June this year because the funding was time limited, we have extended it. As you could imagine, case management is a resource intensive investment, but one that we know works. We have collected a significant amount of data and evidence over the years, and we do know that that is one of the most successful interventions we can do. So that's why we're funding more of it. I would love the job seeker numbers not to be where they are, but that is the reality. So we have to invest more, and over time, we will see the benefits of that.
Your question, Jenny. Yes.
Thank you. Kia ora, Minister. How many additional jobs have been created by your government?
I'm not counting new jobs created. I can tell you with the budget announcement, there will be significant jobs under the Minister of Economic Growth's announcements in Investment Boost, for example. I'm clearly focused on the target, which is to reduce the number of people on the job seeker benefit. If you look at Budget 25 and initiatives like Investment Boost, we want to see more businesses have the confidence because it is businesses that create the jobs, not government.
So under your watch, 18 months, there are 30,000 more people who are not in work right now. Could you point me to some of the initiatives that assist people into work that are new under your government? So not previous ones, but new initiatives that assist those additional 30,000 people under your watch into employment.
Yeah, so first let me backtrack. If you look at the job seeker numbers, they have continued to rise over many years. What we do know is when we have excessive government spending, higher interest rates, higher inflation, leads to a recession, and unfortunately people lose their jobs as a result. That is the point of the cycle we are at the moment. I would love to sit here and have a different set of circumstances, but that's what we inherited 18 months ago. That's what we are dealing with. I'm not necessarily convinced that lots of new programs get the outcomes we desire. Community coaching and welfare that works is what we have initiated. But as I've said in my opening comments, I'm far more interested in things that we have the evidence for what works. So Hei Po Tama Rangatahi, which was launched by the previous national government in 2017, is successful. We're continuing it. Mana and Mahi was introduced by the then Labour government. It's working, so we're continuing it. Case management, though, case management is proving to be the most successful, even in very challenging labour market conditions. And as I said in my opening remarks, I'm really pleased to see the large number of people exiting the job seeker benefit into work despite challenging times. You would expect that the numbers would be lower than a year ago, and that's not the case. So what we're doing is working, and that's why the Investor Save means we can do more of it.
Do you think that scrapping workforce development councils has contributed to New Zealanders having 30,000 more people not able to find employment?
Well, as a Minister for Social Development and Employment, I'm not responsible for workforce development councils, and I would suggest that member ask the question of the Minister responsible.
What part of the budget reflects economic growth, considering we have lower growth, we have wages that are stagnant, we have businesses closing, and there are more people in New Zealand losing their jobs?
Well, as I've outlined, unfortunately, the conditions that we have come into, very high government spending, excessive and wasteful government spending, leading to high interest rates, high inflation, economic recession and job losses, is the reality of what we are dealing with. So if that member has questions for the Minister of Economic Growth, I'd invite her to ask them of that minister. But this is a growth budget, clearly investment boost, and I hope that member was at Field Days last week because she would have seen the very businesses that employ New Zealanders all over our country who see that one initiative alone as being a significant stimulus to help get our economy growing again and back on track. And when businesses have confidence, of course, they employ more staff.
Last one. Cumulatively, there are 66,000 more people on job seeker over the period to June 27 than forecast at the last election. Does this demonstrate that the policies that you're implementing are failing and that you're simply trying to blame a previous administration for your own failures to get people into work?
Not at all. We are dealing with a recession. We're dealing with economic conditions. Listen to any economist and they'll tell you they are going on worse for longer. The economic recovery is more sluggish, and that's a range of factors that the member
You don't believe
will
you've contributed to that at all?
Definitely not. No, we have gone on top of government spending.
How's
The savings
construction workers
identified
leaving
in
New
this
Zealand?
budget are a good example of that. Have we got more to do in terms of savings? Absolutely. But we are focused on the job seeker reduction target, and I am not shying away from that target to reduce the number of people on the job seeker benefit by 50,000, because our government knows how important it is for individuals and families to be in work. We know that is the pathway out of hardship, and that's why we continue to focus on that as one of our 9 government targets.
Move to Maureen.
Thank you. Minister, just a sup to those questions about the unemployment. And I note in the budget documents that you are still expecting to see a rise in main benefits over the next year. So can you please explain how this budget is going to help bring those numbers down and what gives you confidence that your programs are going to be working?
Yeah, so the member quite rightly highlights the change in the BFU forecasts of 24 to 25, and it does show benefit numbers continuing to rise, peaking at the end of this year. If I look at BFU 24, the original estimation was that job seeker numbers would peak in June, but that's been pushed out. That is why, in discussions with the Minister of Finance, I pushed incredibly hard to increase spending and employment initiatives in this budget through the Investor Save, albeit a new approach, because we have to, in effect, invest to support people into employment. And that's exactly the approach we've taken. And the member before me, well, hopefully would realise that the job seeker numbers were always forecast to increase before they got better. That doesn't mean you walk away from those people, because I'm very clear, every single person who comes off welfare and into a job, it can be life-changing for them, and that's what I'm committed to.
Just a supplementary on that, Minister, just how important is it to get people under the age of 25 off the benefit, and how quickly does that need to be done with data that you're seeing?
Yeah, so as I said in my opening comments, unfortunately, someone who goes on to benefit under the age of 25, we do know the forecast of the length of time they stay there is nearly 18 years, which is nearly 2 decades of their lives. And I'm unwilling to accept that. That's one of the reasons behind the shift in our 18 and 19 policy. It's really returning to an aspiration or an expectation that 18 and 19-year-olds are in further education, training or work. And that's what we want to return young people to. by rather than it being first choice or second choice even to go on welfare. We want to give them better opportunities in life, and that's behind this policy that will come into effect on the 1st of July 27.
Next question, Willie Jackson.
Kia ora, Minister. Minister, I'm sure you'll be concerned about the unemployment rate with Māori, and I just want to know, first of all, what's your strategy been around consultation with Māori, and in terms of addressing Māori unemployment, what are the strategies going forward? Have you got a plan in terms of that, given unemployment rate for Māori is double and has been for some years?
Yeah. So basically the Invest to Save is for Māori unemployed, Pacifica unemployed, disabled unemployed, you name it. That's why we have a range of initiatives available. And if you think about case management, that is why it is effective. It is dealing with the person in front of you, the challenges and barriers they face to employment. So yes, what we do know is when the labour market is tight and unemployment is higher than we'd like, it disproportionately affects young people, Māori, Pacifica, disabled. And that's why, again, focusing on an Invest to Save allows us to put more resource into the things that work.
Yeah.
In terms of your question around consultation, I'm meeting with providers on a regular basis, including Māori providers who don't solely run programs and services for Māori unemployed, but that's often heavily weighted in terms of the population.
Is there a problem, though, Minister? Is there a problem in terms of, and I can understand what you're doing, but is there a problem with a universal type strategy, as compared to the targeted strategy, which where you're doing a total focus in terms of Māori? You will recall we had Māori employment programs, we brought in the experts, going down this universal strategy, which I think is where you're going. Don't you think you'll miss that target? I mean, isn't it? Do you think that's one of the
It's not
problems?
universal, because if you look at Hei Tama Rangatahi,
Yes.
for example, I think it's 70% of the participants are
Yes.
Māori, and Mano Mahi, again, heavily proportion.
What about Māori trade
participants.
training, Minister? I mean, can you tell me why you cancelled Māori trade training?
Yep. So where there were time-limited funding, that's the first programs that would stop, and we've allowed many of those COVID initiatives and programs that were funded due to COVID to lapse. If you think back to those unfortunate times, we expected the unemployment rate, or some of the estimates would be that the unemployment rate would hit double digits. We're sitting at 5.1 as an unemployment rate. It hasn't moved in the last little while. So it does make sense that programs that were funded because of COVID and the circumstances at the time, we don't require those to be continued.
Although the feedback I get, with respect, Minister, on Māori trade training has been terrific. That was a concept that we started because our communities told us that this had been successful in past years, and we broadened it. We brought in the hairdressing and all that. I would have thought it would have been something that you would have continued, given you had the success in front of you.
Yeah, so the reality is we can't fund everything. Part of having to prioritise and get on top of high government spending is actually making choices about what gets continued and what doesn't. And as I said, have been very clear about initiatives that were started due to COVID when the circumstances were envisaged to be quite different, with double-digit unemployment. Thank goodness we didn't reach those figures, but we're down at 5.1%, and we need to focus on the programs that have been funded, that we do know are successful, like Mana and Mahi, like Hei Tama Rangatahi, and case management.
I know that others want to come in. Can I just come? I was listening to the exchanges over the homelessness kaupapa. Obviously, it's a very, very important kaupapa. Are you concerned that, in terms of the homeless area, about the amount of people who are homeless because of the use of sanctions?
Well, I'm not going to cover off areas that are a colleague's responsibility, but in terms of sanctions specifically, actually, it's been really encouraging to see that 98% of those on benefit are complying with their obligations. They're at green. That's great news. 1.2% are at red. So that is a very low number. And the other addition that I thought the member might appreciate is that we have added, MSD have added a key performance indicator to their suite of measures around people understanding what their obligations are. So I think the traffic light system is working. The sanctions are fair and reasonable, and they're communicated when a person first signs on to a benefit. So there's actually multiple interactions. That's also why case management is effective. We want to see a more active welfare system, and one that is more intensive rather than hands-off.
Supplementary.
Right, sorry, I forgot that this is not a generic select committee that we're watching. I've been sitting there for the last five minutes going, when is she going to leave and we move on to the next person? There isn't one. Sorry, guys.
It's all right. I know you're just trying to torture us.
I'm not, Sam is.
Somebody said in the comments, oh, we should put a lie detector test on them while they're giving evidence. But I don't think psychopaths, the lying doesn't register because they don't feel emotion.
You are correct, they do not.
So I'm not sure that you could actually, like, their dislike and disdain of people who are struggling is so obvious, and the contempt that they see people with, it's actually really hard to watch.
Yeah.
The sad thing is it's like they just do this shit. Like, you know, it's not even being conservative or anything like that. It's sort of basically it's like the previous government. You know, it always starts with the previous government. You know, was a court case and where the bee's knees. Now, even though they're sitting there and every indicator is going haywire, isn't it? Like, you know, like if this was your house, you know, like at the moment, supposedly you just stop spending money and everything's going to come right. Oh, okay, no, that's cool. That's cool. It's a bit, you know, you're a business and you're going to like halve spending and you're going to get growth. Like, when has that ever happened? Like, if you're a farmer and you want to get growth in how much you produce, you spend more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is there was massive growth during the COVID time. Yeah, and there was a lot of debt because we printed a lot of money and we went into debt. And there was a lot of bad things, you know, about that debt and all the rest of it. But I don't care because it's just debt. The thing is these guys haven't actually paid off any debt. It's actually got more. And they've cut spending and they've done all these different things and they're going hard on the job seekers and all this. So they're going to drive 18 and 19-year-olds at the moment berserk. For what? For nothing. For absolutely nothing. They're going to like do all of this shit. And, you know, at the end of their term, they've actually done nothing. And it just sort of seems really sad. Like, why were they sitting out there for 9 years only to come up with this shit? Which I'll tell you, the government that did this was Ruth Richardson. And before her, there was that other bastard.
What Muldoon?
No. Before there was one before that. And they've done this shit before, and we don't get any better for it. And this is the best year that we've had a really good year. They don't say this, but it's got nothing to do with the government. We've had a really good year. We've humped out a shit ton of exports.
Yeah.
There's no need to be cutting spending now and this sort of thing. But like, you know, we're fighting this other thing with this GE shit. They've spent 500 million.
In the realm of, we don't know exactly how much once you add all of the different things.
Yeah, but into startups for genetically engineered vaccines for cattle and shit like that. And Mr. Luxon thinks they're going to make a fortune out of that. But no one wants to eat anything that's genetically engineered. It doesn't really matter. Everything's a startup. They're trying to turn all our sciences into selling startups. They've spent more money on this shit and they justify it with moonbeams and all sorts of things. Like, their justification for doing all that spending is pretty not really robust. And then the justification for doing this, man, they're doing backflips here. Hands down, man. Didn't Willie Jackson just went inside her and outside her like in the Matrix, man. She doesn't even know what's happened. She's not very smart. Like, if she thinks she can just keep doing this shit, everything is She's got 3 moves. Oh, the previous government. Oh, you're talking about the previous government. Where did this government? And he says, and the other lady said, but in your time, from the time that you've taken over, it's gone up, 30,000 people are now jobless. Like it's got worse under you. It hasn't got better. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. Man, it's like, no wonder we've got ferries that they put on autopilot and they crash into a rock and no one knows how to take it off it. This government's on autopilot and it's just going to crash, isn't it? Just like that frigate over in Samoa. It's just going to crash. No one can take it off this course.
Yeah. The government makes my brain hurt.
Well, like when you're doing something, and it's like when you're growing something, when you're trying to grow something, because she's talking about growth, when you're trying to grow something and you're sitting there and you're standing there staring at your garden and nothing's sprouted for 2 years.
Don't talk about my garden that way.
No, but if you're sitting there, you're not growing something, are you? You're killing it. And it's like they're killing the economy.
But it's also what you invest in. So again, going back to this the patent thing, right? We had a science that used to study ecology, and that was a good investment because it was how farming could integrate with nature, and we weren't ruining our conservation land by over farming it, right? Now they've turned it into patent-based technologies, and they're all on get rich quick schemes. Mm-hmm. And they're believing their own ecosystem because they've all got them into MPI and MFE, and they're all writing reports and giving each other awards. And then it goes out to farmers like it did in the field days this week. And the farmers are going, you're wanting me to buy something that's going to cost me $30 a cow every 6 months, and it's going to devalue my product and might even get it turned down at the border. Why am I doing this again? Like, explain to me why you've invested in this, because this is going to destroy my market. And it's like you've come up with this crazy scheme and you haven't actually talked to the end user.
No.
You're just trying to make somebody's life more difficult.
One of the big things that they were trying to sell at the field days was robotics and technology, like just artificial technology, cutting down the amount of staff that you need. So
increasing unemployment.
So, but she said there in that thing, you should have been at the field days because that's where jobs are being created. It's like, hang on, we've just been watching that. That was where jobs are being deleted, and she's also, do you know what I mean? Like, she's actually not being, like, if she was there, maybe she drank too much or something and just didn't. But and she sort of said, what I just picked up, because I'm a numbers person, and 70,000 people, 490 case managers, and everyone says that if you have, I'm not really into this because I don't really want more case managers or anything like that. I don't want people subjected to this shit, but that works out to 150 people per person. So if I was in sales and I had 150 people, 150 clients, and I had to try and ring them at least once a week, how do you think I'd get on? I'd be like, I wouldn't want to, there'd be a high, I would say there is a huge staff turnover at the Ministry of Social Development.
Yeah, there is.
That's why there's only 490 staff, because a lot of the unemployed are coming from the actual Ministry of Social Development, because it'd be like asterisks in the 12 tasks where you turn people into chickens and idiots, as you put someone working in that place and they're just going to just blow their mind, and it's awful. And anybody that would want to work there, man, you'd be a bastard. You'd be an absolute lowlife.
Yeah, they talk about creating a job market and giving jobs to people, and this is what we need and that is what we need, and et cetera, et cetera. And you're exactly right, without talking to the people at the end who they say they're trying to serve. They're doing a terrible bloody job. And they're not thinking that, they don't seem to be thinking that these strategies and these things that they're putting in place to supposedly help people are actually harming us in the long run. WINS workers, MSD case managers, used to be trained for 6 months before they were allowed into the building to work with a client. Because they kept losing staff and their turnover was so high, that training got cut down to 6 weeks. The majority of MSD case managers do not actually know most of the thing that their clients are entitled to.
What used to be, I think, I can't remember if it was ACC or both ACC and work and income, but it used to be that they would actually get a bonus if they didn't give people what they were entitled to.
Yeah, no, there's a standard Ruth Richardson policy, which this just seems to be a reenactment of. So basically, if where she's quoting that they've got those numbers off, that's because somebody sat there and hit delete, 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 bonus, delete, 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 bonus. You know, like block number, you know?
Yeah.
That's all they're doing. And it's because, and I don't think that's ever been passed, but there was talk of making that illegal, the putting bounties on people's heads in the, and I don't think it ever got through. And it was something that I thought was a very good policy. I don't know if it was put up. I think it was put up by the Green Party, but I don't think it made it through. And that's something that, you know, we've got to make sure that, because that it's not just the people that are getting hurt, it's the people that are doing it, because you're literally making Nazis.
Yeah.
You know that word on the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I think when
be careful, you'll get us flagged.
I think when people
assassins, I guess.
Well, no. My thing is when, like, if you're in trouble and you can't feed your family or you can't feed yourself, I want to think that I pay tax in a country that has compassion, and I want to think that I live with a hell of a lot of conservative people that would be so angry that they would march if we weren't behaving like that. And, you know, the sad thing is for conservatives in this country is they think it's okay if what they call the left is outraged. They don't have to get outraged. Well, there's some conservative values that you should never let go of, and that is compassion, because conservatism is meant to be from a faith-based thing, where you love thy neighbour. And so, yeah, this is why when Ruth Richardson came in to this country and this sort of policy was created, it was so foreign to a national government, because national government used to be truly conservative. Now it's not. I don't know what it is.
It's a business. It's a business. It's a
business model.
But it's not even the party of local New Zealand business and growing local New Zealand business. It's the party of corporations. And if you're an international corporation and you don't even pay tax here, that we'll still treat you more fairly than we will a local plumber or a builder or farmer, because you've got big numbers on the board, even though you pay no tax here because you've got clever accountants. One of the things, like we used to have, where we'd have the trains and they'd be publicly owned and we'd build our own trains, we maintain our own trains, and then you created a whole pile of people that were learning a skill on the job, and they were actually being paid to keep the public services running. And when we privatized all that, we actually created a situation where you're paying more for those services. So because you've got to pay shareholders bonuses and profits and all that sort of thing, it actually costs the public more, but the workers get less too. And so it's creating this whole cycle where you're sort of paying for unemployment instead of paying people to actually have a job, because you want to privatize everything because you've got this ideology of the free market. And it's not the free market.
Privatization is not going to work in a country of our size. we are simply too small to support that kind of economic infrastructure. If we privatize everything, we have to sell everything offshore. Everything. Our schools, our hospitals, our public transport, our social development things.
Science.
See, this government is breaking my brain and my words aren't working.
It's quite shocking, actually. Like, normally you'd have I might submit on 4 or 5 things a year. Like, when I go through all of the things I should be submitting on, it's 4 or 5 things a month. And I'm just overwhelmed, and that's almost seems to be part of it. And that's, again, not conservative, ripping out the structures of the society that's held it together. Normally you'd expect them to repeal a few things from the previous government that were just a bit too flaky or weren't working or whatever, but you'd expect them to sort of settle everything down. And that's sort of what Conservatives do, is when there's been big changes and then you let it settle and you let things balance out. But they're just not doing that. They're more radical than any left party that I've ever seen.
But didn't, look, when you look at Willie, like, I'm just so impressed with Willie, because Willie's had his time on talkback radio and all that sort of thing. And, in election time, and there's no one better. And in the House, like, he's really good. He's being so restrained in that situation, and he's just being, he's actually asked, like, he's not politicking in a way. He's just being straight up, and he's actually giving her like every opportunity to actually have a go, and she just can't stop politicking. She's not there working. I'm always impressed by ministers that will use processes in the House, and they're there as a minister, and it's minister first, party second, but she's just party first and stuff what I do. And then she's like saying, "Oh, well, I don't have to answer that question because I'm not the minister for that." Like, you should know.
Yeah.
You should really know.
She really is. Like, she is, you're right, she is actually just saying, fuck the average Joe of this country. Like, that's all there is to it.
100%. And it's just like, and everything that she does is just justified on, look, we've told a story that the last government was a cop case. We're the bee's knees. If anyone says that we're not, well, you just got to remember that the last government was terrible and we're better. It's like, geez, what the story is actually the last government was terrible and you're 10 times worse. Like, someone's going to seize on that. McNulty's going to say, well, yeah, okay, maybe we were a bad government, but Jesus, you bastards, are 10 times worse. Yeah.
And that's always the game plan. And that's all it is to them. Like I was saying to Sam on the show last week, like it's they just see it as a game. They play us off against each other. They play us off against our neighbours because they have more than we do, or they have less than we do, so therefore they are worse than us. No, they have worse than we have. They have less than we have. Therefore, we need to reach out and help.
Yeah,
and there's where we get the homeless person, because the homeless person goes, "Fuck this! I'm not playing this game," and that's all they're doing. And they look down on that person, but that person has actually got no intent to harm anybody, and they look down on them and they think, "You're dangerous to me." It's like, no, you're dangerous to everyone.
Yes, exactly.
The homeless person, man, look, I love homeless people, because the thing is, they never ever stop surprising me. It's like, you have, of course, you have them rip you off. Of course, you have them to do different things. But I've been down and out, and a homeless guy's given me $20.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I was down and out. Maybe I looked homeless. I don't know. I was pretty drunk, but and it wasn't necessarily somebody that I'd helped before. But like, as young people, like, when we'd go out on the town, we were making lots of coin. So we saw some guy that was down on his luck, we'd like throw them some money, but always noticed that the people in suits didn't.
Yeah.
Like we were working in forestry, and people will walk past in suits that were worth about what I earned in a day, and they'd never give them homeless people anything. And
No.
I just I don't know. I don't get conservatism without compassion. I don't understand that, and I think that's incredibly. Like it's incredibly dangerous because it's an elitism, and an elitism is in this country. It's too bloody small, and it's too basic. We are not a sophisticated. We've got no justification for elitism in this country because it's we don't even have fast rail.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
Pacific. Don't get it confused, man. Like our airplanes can't even run on time. Like we've got no justification to have elite people thinking that they're elite, and that's what these people are introducing into our politics, and it sort of ruins it because we weren't ever like that.
But that's everywhere in the world, isn't it? Whenever there's an elite class, that's the problem. It creates a problem. Hi, Ray.
Hi, I made it.
Welcome back.
Duties completed.
Yeah. No, I don't understand conservatism without compassion, but also without tradition. And this government's like trying to get rid of the Maori MPs, trying to change the Treaty of Waitangi, trying to change all of these founding documents. That's not conservatism either. And it just really, I'm quite confused of it, to be honest. I don't really understand it.
Yeah.
There we go. That's
and I was just going to say before, like, you don't have to be, you're a structured religious person to have compassion, to have empathy, to love your neighbor, to want to help your fellow man in your country where you live. You should not have to be a religious zealot fanatic.
Yeah.
To want to raise the bar for the people around you instead of just yourself.
Well, see, the thing is what I don't get is like, even these rich people, they want to see, you either want, I think we've always been a country that what we've started on is that the more money that everybody's got, the more wealthier that we're all going to be. And it rises up like that. Now it's like, and what this government really looks like to me is that the amount of money it can strip out of the bottom and put in the top. And that's shit.
Well, it stays in bank accounts. It doesn't actually get spent in the economy. And so it makes
it doesn't.
Yeah. The whole country can't grow. Whereas like, they always say China's like, communism. But that's how they work. They try to bring the more money,
everybody up together.
Yeah, everybody up, and of course, and what of course they do. They go round up the oligarchs and they take their money off them. But like that's not a bad thing.
Michael Hudson, the economist Michael Hudson, he says that China isn't a communist economy. It's an industrial economy. So it's actually stayed at industrial capitalism, where it's trying to lift everybody up out of poverty and get everybody working, and it's created regulations so that the wealth cannot be stripped out of the country. And what are we doing? We're stripping the wealth out of the country and putting it over in Wall Street with KiwiSaver and all sorts of things, and like letting investment funds buy up our farms and plant monoculture pine trees and cut them down and leave all of the slash everywhere, and so all of the beaches are polluted. I don't know if you've seen that in the Hawke's Bay. So yeah, it's just everywhere. It's just like trying to make money and you're actually losing it.
Yeah. Did you have something to say, Ray?
That reminds me of my submission on the regulatory standards, because I'm thinking what about your community appointed overseer or something that can come into a forestry site and be like, yeah, you're doing this, doing that, whatever. because what do you want to change regulatory standards if they're not being met already? If there's no accountability, that this, destroying people downstream. Other countries have done it too with avocados, and all of the farmers that have been doing it for hundreds of years suddenly have no water because up the valley they took it all. But
Same with almonds.
Same with
almonds.
Right, and that might explain why I didn't digest that mouthful the other day. Soraya, I think you mentioned once, or it might have been you. We had a employment security of a sense. If you don't have the job, you can get a community service job kind of thing. I want to see that.
Yeah.
Time rather than it be a punishment. Community service done right, willingly.
What used to be just things like restoring things in the
Yeah.
the railing, you'd be painting the railing today.
Ah.
As part of your community service, not community service, but as your employment. So thing was like even caring for the shared spaces that we have.
How come that isn't freed up? It's just gone into employment companies. It's not just available there. The work isn't available.
Yeah.
And then you get those employment companies where you're like hiring temporary labor, and then you actually see how much that person's being paid versus how much the company is getting paid.
Yeah.
So the company charges them out at $50 an hour, where they might, at the actual employee is only getting 20. And
so that
yeah, it's
about
the person doing the hard work is always the person that gets the least money.
Yeah. They've never done anything. They've never done anything about those things. Or never made. They could, if they really wanted to attract young people to go into work. Well, then you'd have a tax policy where the first 15,000 that you earn was tax free, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
it's just that simple.
Exactly. Like if you wanted young people to go into study, you would not take away the first year of funds free, like fees free. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's just all pain, isn't it? It's like
it is.
One bit of pain. People haven't got anywhere to go, and then because they haven't gone anywhere, it's because they can't go anywhere, and then you create more pain. It's like it's just
Yeah.
So that was one of the books there. That one's from the 1960s that he wrote. Can you see
Full
it?
employment, W. Rosenberg.
Yeah, and then that one's the more recent one.
The Magic Square. Brilliant.
So what people, and the alternatives to Rodonomics. And it's got like, the forward was by Jim Anderson, who was the politician. What party was he?
Jim started Social Credit, which went on the Alliance. This shows how old I am. Did it die? Must have died out.
Well, once you don't get voted in, the party dies out, really.
It was all started around the same time as the Greens. Like, there was an amazing period of politics in this country. Like, we had the Greens, Social Credit. There was like
MMP.
Was it? Yeah. No, I think Anderson started before MMP. I think it was like because there was just two main parties, and I think it went. I can't remember which first. That'd be actually really interesting. Something we need to look into. But then MMP made it easier for smaller parties. But really, there was only National and Labour ones. But
we're going to get in trouble with Sam because we haven't watched more of her terrible.
That's all right. I can put the link in and people can do it themselves. It's fine. But hold on, quickly, where'd it go? This one, 10 days sick leave. I saw this article today too, Jason. And it just proves that Luxon actually has no idea what his ministers are doing. Because when Brooke was asked about it, she said, no, we are not removing 10 days sick leave. However, they are trying to work on a bill or an amendment or a piece of legislature that will make it more fair and equal, depending on whether you're a full-time, part-time, or casual employee, which is still fucking ridiculous because I don't think that part-time and casual employees should be ripped off from their sick leave just because they don't work as often. I'm sorry, what happens if you have surgery and you're a casual employee and you suddenly can't go to work? Like,
It's really hard to get full-time employment in rural communities. It just really is. And so these sorts of things are just sort of set up.
Well,
in
the
a
sad thing is fix the hospitals, mate.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the thing is a lot of under their watch, hospitals have gone from say they were like a little bit fucked, now they're like massively stuffed, right? So
Yeah.
so if you're sick and your hospital works, maybe you could go to like the hospital or you could ring up and go to a doctor, but sometimes you got to wait 10 days to go and see a doctor.
Oh fuck, is that all?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When they start messing around with sick leave days and all the rest of it, like the pandemic, it was easier to see a doctor, right? So our pandemic's over now, it's all good, but you could actually go see a doctor, right? Now you can't. Now the amount of practitioners, GPs, and that, we haven't got enough, all this sort of shit. We know this stuff. Why would you mess about with this shit? Because you're only going to make your own failures in other things look worse, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know? Or is this just pre-electioneering for the few people that make donations to the party that want sick leave thrown out? Is that all this is? Because that means it's like we've done being the government, we're now campaigning, and we're only going to campaign for donors.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's pretty shit. Because
That's what that's all National ever does, though, is campaign for their donors.
Well, it's not farmers at the moment either. So
No.
I don't know who they're actually for.
Themselves. And
Yeah,
their business
it
buddies.
seems very personal this time.
Yeah.
And they keep some of the in the lead parties. They do betray their own hand when they cite the other side as accusing them of this or that. Like, we didn't actually say that, man.
Yeah.
We spoke generally. You're the one that's getting defensive, so
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah.
Forcing the good side to be even better with their delivery of words.
But yeah, it's pretty. That's the one I have seen that's stuck up for me. Like, you know, messing around with sick days, because like that's, you know, the worst thing is if you are crook and you carry on trying to work and stuff like that. Sometimes it's okay, like when you're young, you know, like sometimes it is good. And sometimes you just get over it. But because, you know, the COVID thing really sort of stuffed a lot of us up, because some people, you know, like as soon as they get sick, they don't know that, well, they instantly go, well, should I better take a day off because, you know, COVID.
I don't want to get the rest of the office sick.
Yeah, and all that sort of
Exactly.
Sometimes it is good, but sometimes it's bloody not, because sometimes, like if you've got a temperature and it's really, really high, and you're seeing double and you're starting to see stars and shit, man, you might actually have meningitis. And
And I can't get to the doctor, and I'm scared that they're gonna fire me if they don't believe me. But it came back because I was that sick recently. It's like, that wasn't meant to happen. I thought it was just a cold.
Yeah. And that's, you know, like if they're attacking the sick days, it's like somebody that does have a rough time. Like sometimes you're lucky. Some people are remarkable way. Some people, it's like, geez, man, you're really sick. Go home. Don't doing here. Go home. And they turn up the next day and it's like, how come you're not sick? You know, like, because you're thinking of yourself and you'll be sick for like 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
You see some poor bastards and it's like, they're either just, everything's so run down and it might take 2 weeks for them to really get over things. We're all different. Like this, it's like, you know, yeah, it's just great to have actually paid sick days.
Or if you've got children, it goes around the whole house and then you're back again. So you've got to take care of the kids and then you catch it again by the time they've got it. So.
Yeah.
It's
I was actually really extremely lucky in my last, full-time gainful employment job. I was extremely lucky that I didn't get bloody fired. Most nights, like, because I worked late shifts in the local supermarket. Most nights I was going home early because I was in too much pain to stay and continue working. Most weeks I was calling in at least once a week to call off sick because I was just in too much pain to even get out of bed, let alone work. And so it's nice to see that I'm just going to say the right-wing government is finally realizing that there are people in New Zealand who legitimately cannot get out and work to support themselves. During the 2020 elections, I got to be part of a group of people that spoke in front of some candidates, asking questions about social welfare and benefits and how they were going to support people who genuinely needed that. Ricardo was there via audiovisual link because he could not get to Wellington in a matter of hours because I believe it was Marama had to cancel at the last minute. So Ricardo jumped in for her. He was amazing. Nicola Willis was there. I was very highly unimpressed. She listened to my speech and my question, supposedly, and then turned around and told me that disabled people should still be out working even when they are in too much pain to do so. The moderator that we had for this session saw the look on my face. I was the only person that she said, would you like to repeat or elaborate on your question so that this candidate can understand what it is that you have actually said? Because Nicola Willis just did not seem to get it. She saw the look on my face. I literally wanted to be sick.
You've told me this and I keep conveniently forgetting it because it's too painful.
Yeah. Yes.
I met her receptionist, who was a lovely man. Perhaps we should go and he says, come by anything you need. Maybe we should go have a conversation. An apology. See where she's at with that story. Was it UCAN speaking or?
No, I wasn't doing it for UCAN. I was doing it for. Oh, I can't remember anymore. But it was something to do with youth. Because technically under the UN I was still youth at that point, even though I was in my late 20s. Right, we're going to jump back into this thing because we have been chatting for a very long time about what bullshit they are bringing up. So I'm going to hit play for you guys and I'm going to run away to the loo and I'll see you shortly. Enjoy.
Ricardo?
Using the Māori trades and training, what does she say to the 1,000 people who could have been supported into trades? She now has chosen to leave without those very same opportunities that were afforded to them in previous years as a result of the cuts that she has made.
Well, ending time-limited funding isn't technically a cut. It's just not, it is not finding additional funding to fund it. And those 1,000 people, there's a number of programs that they can transfer into that are on offer around the country. The member may also appreciate that there are regional contracts available and some of the providers may choose to go down that route.
I've got a bit of a line of people waiting for questions. Just check, Madam, is yours a supplementary or primary? If yes, give me 1 or 2.
Wrong
Oh,
button.
right. It is 2.
It's supplementary. Okay, great. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora, Minister Koutou Katoa. So it's just running off the lines of questioning just prior related to Māori and young Māori particularly. And I wanted to just get more of a discussion, Minister, around because the context particularly for Māori overrepresented in the system and the way in which the engagement often doesn't work so well. What are your, in terms of practical outcomes, would you see in terms of to achieve for Māori who are overrepresented in the system? And I wanted to specifically talk to the automated decision-making element of it, but maybe I think it's just generic, Minister, on when you've got an overrepresentation, you've got a difficult and sad history in terms of the way in which Māori are engaged, particularly when we know in the systemic of it, there is racial or cultural bias. Those are difficult things to contend with. How do you think you're going to reach those outcomes that are hopefully going to lift? And yet we know that it's a real tough set of circumstances, particularly for young and Māori who do not engage well or easily and find it in a hostile environment.
Thanks. So the first thing I would say, the automated decision-making standard was introduced and approved by Cabinet back in 2022. So this is about extending the use of it. I might pass to Viv just to kind of explain a little bit more about, you know, what it means for the front line. And rather than me repeat what I've already said about the employment initiatives and young Māori, I'll hand over to Viv.
Thank you, Minister. Ours is a very manual system. So everything we do is in person on the phone. So it's quite a manual processing. So all the decisions, because of that, we have a processing centre in the background. They do all of our processing because we don't have straight through processing. There's no way in our current system to automate decisions based on both our legislation, our manuals and practices and procedures, and the way we do our business. So that's why we've got 490 new people. We're delighted, but actually in the background, we've got a whole lot of people that do processing of manual things. So in Whangarei, where the member is, and we've got a processing centre there that does childcare and it's stuff. They still have the old paper-based system because we don't have an automated approach like most other agencies actually today. So when we talk about modernisation, some of it just bringing it up to standard for today, so we can actually maximise and optimise the people we've got to help people into work rather than do processing in the back. And I think between Simon and Mel and Sash, they'll do any other intricacies of Legion and other things in relation to it, but I think that's it, Minister. It's really just putting our people on the things we want them to do.
Yeah, and just coming back to case management, for example, 44% of those in case management are Māori, and if I've got the stat right, 38% of those on the job seeker benefit are Māori.
Yeah.
So 39. So it is slightly higher as a percentage, but again, that shouldn't be surprising given that it's the most effective intervention that we have.
Laura.
One other thing I could add, Maria Mero, is many of the services that we provide. So if we look at youth services as an example, MSD isn't actually the provider of those services. So for young, vulnerable Māori as an example, many of those services and the work that they do is done through a third party. Many of the providers are community-based providers in their local communities. So we're not the total service delivery of or engagement with every person or every client that we deal with. And our staff recognise at times, particularly for young people, they may be better served by our provider in the community.
Laura.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister. So you talked a little bit around the stats around welfare dependency, but we also know that children that grow up in welfare dependent homes have a higher risk of becoming dependent themselves. But we know that like the likes of attending ECE help actually reduce those rates. Can you tell me what in this budget is targeted all for children and how you plan on tackling some of those?
Yeah, so as I've said previously, one of the other priorities for me is reducing the number of children in benefit-dependent households for that very point that we know their life outcomes, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's their income, and contact with the justice system, either as a victim or a perpetrator of crime. So significantly worse life outcomes. So we do have a particular focus on job seekers that have children and making sure that they are prioritised in the investment strategy. So basically every year we do an investment strategy, and that prioritises who to work with. And unfortunately, we've seen the number of children in benefit dependent households increase over the last 6 to 7 years. And that's a trend that I want to see reverse. There's also cross-agency work around reducing material hardship. And that is one of the 3 priorities in the child and youth wellbeing strategy. And that's not just me as an individual minister, but crosses into other ministers like the Minister for Early Childhood Education, as well as Ministers of Health and things like that. So we recognise that in order to really break some of those patterns around children in welfare dependent households and children experiencing material hardship, we have to go beyond individual government agencies.
Your question, Tanya.
Thank you, Minister. Now, you've probably already touched on this a little bit. How else is MSD investing in its systems and processes and services, and how can the client expect to benefit from this? What changes will they see from the investment?
Yeah, so the as I said, the what used to be called Te Pai Tāwhiti, or the Services for the Future, is a 9-year program of work. We're in year 3. And so I might just hand over in terms of some of the detail of what that will mean. One of the initiatives, for example, is digital employment, which will make it so much easier for a person on job seeker benefit to be supported.
I can start, and then maybe Viv can. So this is a multi-year program, as the Minister said, started work on this 2 or 3 years ago, and will continue into the future as well. We've got some budget money this year and ongoing budget money, but it's been withheld for commercial sensitivity reasons, obviously. But if you look at something like digital employment, in order to deliver digital employment, we'll also have to do some foundational work. So, for example, we have to get client authentication sorted. We have to think about how we do data transfers, how we make sure the data is integrated well. So at the same time, you might be thinking about a new digital employment service, which will mean that we can get better engagement between employers and job seekers without us necessarily having to be in the middle of that. So if people want to do job matching at midnight, then they can do job matching at midnight. What we'll also be able to see is where we've got clients, for example, who are struggling to find work. They might be applying for the wrong job. Is their CV fit for purpose? Are they getting the right support? Do they need a driver's license? So we'll be able to see some of those things, as well as engage in a much more modern way that job seekers expect to engage, and employers in this world. But at the same time you do that, we'll also be doing what we call value drops to make sure that we're modernising the underlying systems. Our staff have, as Viv alluded to, very complex systems that they have to work, often manual, or multiple screens that they're kind of navigating. MSD's Services for the Future aims to completely re-platform all of those, so that there's a much more...
Is it just me, or does Louise look like she has absolutely no idea what's going on?
Much easier. So we have to be fit for purpose. We have to allow our clients to be able to engage with us digitally, and we have to get out of their way. And then for the clients who need the most support, through case management as an example, we have to be available for them without being caught between the two.
Yeah.
Thank you. A full-time median income earner will be $978.40 worse off than was forecast compared to last year's budget. How does lower wages help people who are struggling in a cost of living crisis?
Well, I'm not sure where the member gets her figures from. Our focus
1% lower growth. So real wage growth is forecast to be almost 1% lower across the next 3 years in comparison to budget 2024. That was from the budget.
And initiatives like Investment Boost are about lifting wages. And as I said before, I would love to be sitting here in very different economic times, but that's the reality of what we have inherited. So we have to deal with the reality. We have to deal with the underlying circumstances like high government spending and wasteful spending, which is why each budget we look at what are the opportunities to save, because those are the things that take the pressure off. They are the things that are creating economic harm. And as I said before, the economic recovery, the growth forecasts are lower than we would like. But if we look a few years out, that growth is continuing to increase. And those are measures that we've taken in this budget that will get us there.
Given that minimum wage growth is actually lower than inflation, our lowest wage earners are now worse off in real terms. How does that affect people who are struggling to pay for $16 or $17 for a block of butter?
Well, that's why we are absolutely focused on the cost of living. Priority number 1 is the cost of living in the economy. So, as I said, we have to deal with the realities of what people are facing. That is why part of the budget was an amendment to an increase in the Working for Families threshold. So 140,000 families benefit from that. We have aimed initiatives in Budget 25 at the low and middle income households. And we have to do it in a way that we are very, very carefully balancing pressure on the cost of living. And that's why some of the initiatives, like the Working for Families, for example, have been in that area. Is there more to do? Absolutely. But the cost of living has to be priority number one, because that is the thing that is still causing significant pain out there for individuals. But as I say, there's other work across the government that covers this area that don't sit within my responsibilities.
So unemployment is forecast to be higher for longer as a result of Budget 2025. What is it in your budget that actually provides any incentives or supports for people to get into work? And again, new initiatives, not previous government.
Yeah, so as I said, the economic conditions that we find ourselves in, that we have inherited, are challenging.
No, I just want to point back to that. It's
Yeah,
a
well,
result
Budget
of your budget.
2025 and the unemployment rate that we have didn't spring up overnight.
It's not addressing my question.
It has been coming for many years, very much based on the decisions that the previous government made.
No,
I'm
but
focused on how to solve
your
the
budget
problem,
increased
which
unemployment.
is why we have an Invest to Save, which is about providing opportunities for more people to get back into
Do you not
employment.
accept that your budget increased unemployment?
I accept the conditions that we have inherited. Budget 2025 is dealing with the economic circumstances we have, making choices about how to go forward, how to grow the economy, how to ensure that more businesses have confidence to take on staff. That is what reduces the number of people who are out of work and lifts wages.
Do you agree that the choices that you have made have entrenched the recession and made it last for longer?
No, I don't.
Causing people
I
more
fully,
hardship in New
I
Zealand?
fully reject that. We are dealing with the circumstances that we inherited. We have now had two budgets, both based on dealing with the cost of living, which we absolutely must do because families are still doing it incredibly tough out there. I'd love to be sitting here with a different set of economic circumstances, but when you come in as an incoming government, you don't pick the circumstances. You go into it with your eyes wide open and you then deal with the problems that you are faced with. That's exactly what we're doing. That's why the budget is focused on economic growth, to create more opportunities, more jobs and higher wages. That's what the budget is all about.
I have a question, or a couple of questions actually. What impact will the accommodation supplement, adjusting area boundaries have?
I thought the member might be interested in that.
Very interested in this one.
So there was a petition a while back from a gentleman in Queenstown that called for changes to the accommodation supplement boundaries. This is another cost of living initiative that's in Budget 2025. We expect that about 4,000 people will see the benefit of this because, for example, around Queenstown, there will be areas that were previously deemed to be rural that are now urban. And of course, the costs of housing in those areas are significantly higher than they were. So that's why we have deliberately made the choice in this budget to change the accommodation supplement boundaries. There's obviously more territorial authorities that will be affected. So yes, it will benefit Queenstown, but it will, I think it's about 45 territorial authorities that will be affected. And for the many people that have written in support of that petition, I know they will be pleased that we are making this change.
I can say, I think there's 45 areas across the country, very pleased, and I can say I jumped out of an aeroplane in opposition to help bring attention to this issue in the Queensland area, so people very pleased in my area, so thank you, Minister.
Your jump was worthwhile.
It was a worthwhile parachute jump, that one. Thank you. Thanks, Ricardo.
Thank you. I've got a series of questions on the changes to the eligibility of the accommodation supplement and income-related rent subsidy that will produce over $150 million in savings. And I wanted, that will leave 7,000 people receiving the accommodation supplement $100 worse off each week, according to MSD's own analysis. I wanted to check if you stand by your own statement that you gave to me in the House during question time last week, that quote says, in relationship to this policy. And what we do know is those households who have the lowest incomes are the most harshly affected by the cost of living crisis, which is why we needed to make changes to this regime to ensure that we alleviate pressure for low-income households. How is leaving 7,000 families $100 worse off each week, quote, alleviating pressure for low-income households with this regime?
So this is a Budget 24 measure. Mr. Chair, if you're happy for me to, if you're happy for me to answer it, I can do so. Great. Okay. So just to be clear, the member's asking about a Budget 24 measure that we have been in the process of passing legislation for recently. And this is a situation where prior to the legislation passing, not all borders were taken into account. And most New Zealanders would think when housing assistance, yes, I'm providing some context for those who are
I know the bill.
watching. Yeah, but people who are watching the live stream won't necessarily know the bill. And because it's budget 24 rather than budget 25, it's useful to provide some context. So the intention was, in terms of the calculation of housing assistance, all housing income is taken into consideration, including income from boarders number 1 and boarders number 2. The other significant change is that you shouldn't be able to have the accommodation supplement or housing assistance from 2 different directions in the same household. So the other change is someone who is paying board receiving the accommodation supplement. At the same time, the person who is running the household who is taking in board was also getting the accommodation supplement. That clearly doesn't make sense, which is why we have changed the legislation. I do accept that there is an impact, but it is really important that we have a system for housing assistance that works and is fair and that taxpayers would expect, because at the end of the day, it is the money they earn when they go to work that pays for the housing assistance. And when we are making savings, we are looking at ways to save money from government spending, to reduce government spending, to alleviate the cost of living pressure. That is exactly what we're doing, and I accept that the member doesn't like this policy, but it's about thinking of the bigger picture where we have to reduce government spending in order to alleviate the cost of living pressure across the board. And the member that was previously sitting to his right was particularly interested in the cost of living crisis, as I'm sure he is.
A supplementary, and then I've got a handful of those. Was you wrong to say that this regime would alleviate pressure for low-income households when the advice by MSD shows the exact opposite?
Well, there are hundreds of thousands of households who are doing it tough right now because of the cost of living. That's why our government's made it. As I've just said, well, the member himself highlighted the savings that it will deliver. And when we have to look at government spending, we have to find savings. That's exactly what we've done.
Okay. Was MSD correct in identifying that older and disabled people will be disproportionately affected due to the loss in accommodation supplement and income-related rent subsidies as part of these reforms?
Well, if they have boarders at the moment, that they are not, is not being counted as part of their housing assistance.
Was MSD correct in saying that the savings that the minister is claiming that she's going to have could have been overestimated as a result of people now needing to access hardship assistance and things like emergency housing as a direct result of the negative financial consequences brought by this policy?
Yeah, that's why I've asked MSD to monitor the impacts of the policy. But as I said, first and foremost, Budget 24, of which this is a measure, was about dealing with the cost of living crisis. So every agency was asked to find savings to reduce government spending in its entirety, which therefore takes pressure off high interest rates, inflation, and direct costs that households face.
Can you name one part of the changes she made to the eligibility of the accommodation supplement and this reforms, part of the budget legislation, that alleviates pressure for low-income households?
I've already answered that question.
Can you just name one?
Well, I've just already answered it.
Supplementary.
You can't name one.
Supplementary.
I've answered it. I've told you two.
You've literally
no, that's not
a single measure that helps low-income
not a debating
families.
session.
I've got
You're misleading
a
low-income people.
question on this. I pointed out in the debate on this act, and because of that report, that if I have boarders, I'm actually allowed to deduct that I have those boarders without any tax implications. So a middle class family can have those boarders, but a working class family that can't make ends meet now can't. How is that giving people a hand up and alleviating poverty?
Well, the clear difference is one is being paid by taxpayers. So where there is housing assistance, where hardworking New Zealanders get up and go to work and pay tax, their expectation is that the housing assistance that is provided is fair. And as I said, I've highlighted two examples where it's clearly not, and we need to ensure in spending taxpayer money on their behalf that it is fair and reasonable. And in this case, it clearly isn't. If you have a boarder, then that income from that boarder should be taken into consideration in terms of your eligibility for housing assistance. I accept that the member doesn't like it, but what we are trying to do is reduce government spending overall to reduce the cost of living pressures
My
for New
supplementary
Zealanders.
is, do you accept people on accommodation supplement are often the hardest working New Zealanders we have? They're just not making ends meet because wages are so low, and that you have cut off a source of them being able to make ends meet.
Well, the member wasn't here when I answered the question around wages, so I'm not going to
Well, they're two are combined
cover
because
ground.
accommodation supplement is for the purpose. It recognises people cannot make ends meet in this country despite working really hard.
Yeah,
Do you accept these are the hardest working New Zealanders that you have cut off at the knees by this policy?
No, I don't agree with that. And as I said, we have a responsibility to all taxpayers, and that is the focus. Unfortunately, we have inherited some very challenging times with the cost of living crisis. We are taking measures both in Budget 24, like this one is, as well as Budget 25 to alleviate some of that pressure. But we have to ensure that when there is support and assistance that is funded by taxpayers, it is fair. And if people are getting income, housing income, that isn't included in their eligibility, well, that's clearly not fair. That's why we've made this change.
Right. Howdy, folks. Sorry I'm very, very late. I was stuck in a meeting, but I just want to address what Louise just said. I'm on supported living. I receive an accommodation supplement. I smashed up my legs doing things like forestry and stuff like that. I can't work full time, okay? Now, for her to come out and say that people that receive accommodation supplement are not some of the hardest working people in New Zealand, I flatly refuse to accept that premise. I mean, okay, so I pay board, right, because it's cheaper to have a house than it is to pay rent. Okay, my family got very lucky. I'm a member of a big family. We worked collectively to buy the house I'm sitting in right now. Partly due to in part due to the fact that my grandparents, who sadly passed away, put aside some money so we could put a down payment on. So big family, right? We've got a mortgage. We're all paying it off together using accommodation supplement because some of us are disabled. Some of us are not able to work full time. I have an older sister who now works full time, but before she was receiving accommodation supplement, she was taking care of the board. Okay, and these are the types of families like mine that are going to be impacted by what Louise is doing. Again, it is cheaper to board and work collectively as a family than it is to rip apart a family and put them out renting different properties, because that's what we were doing before. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
100%. It's cheaper for the family, but it's worse off for anyone that could be their landlord.
Yep, it is worse for the landlords. It is good. It's good for me because we've saved a ton of money doing this. Right? Being able to put down that down payment. Yeah, and again, my sister, when she was receiving accommodation supplement because she was on job seekers for a while, because I live in a rural area. Okay. You can't tell me with a straight face that she doesn't work hard. She was cleaning police stations, cleaning toilets, cleaning everything. You know, she was driving from Masterton to Masterton and back, cleaning, breaking her back, doing volunteer work. Now, Louise is going to try and tell me with a straight face that my sister is lazy.
Yeah, being a commercial cleaner is not an easy job, but been there, done that too.
Same here. Same here. And I've done forestry part-time as well, you know, while receiving accommodation supplement. Am I lazy? Has she ever done breaking out before? Has she ever had to carry big giant chains and big chainsaws and get paid very little for it?
But
No, she isn't.
100%. Though every Samoan family in Paurua that works, Taylor Preston's Meat Works.
Part Samoan,
family that's there. Okay, so that very house that bitch is sitting in is cleaned by the same people that work at that meatworks. And they go there and they clean that place so that it's nice and spotless, so she can sit her white ass down there in that room. And they're lazy, and those poor bastards have to pay secondary and third tax. So they work all day and all night. That supplement thing, man, it's just like it's the cheapest thing the taxpayer can pay.
Yeah, I'm saving the taxpayer money.
Yes.
Paying for a mortgage rather than paying rent. I'm saving you money. That's why we did this. We're saving money. we don't require as much an accommodation supplement living like this.
Yep.
No, it's just easy, but it's because she's no lived experience.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, like what it's the thing that we were talking about earlier, and I think they all felt full foul of it too. Like I've been blown away. Like something that is just the other day we went for when we go down and get our fish and chips. We walk down the Wānanga. We walk around the Wānanga, the Maori University in Otaki. And when they say that there's not opportunities for Maoris, this is the cleanest university in all of New Zealand. There is not one piece of rubbish on the whole thing. It's because they have pride in that university. Their university is the only university in New Zealand that has full enrollment. Their university is just is just to die for. I wish I was married. If I was young again, I wish I was married just to go to that university, right?
Hey, you can go to Te Wānanga. You don't have to be Māori to go to Te Wānanga. That's open to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Point is, if they want to do something with Maori, is just tell them that they are. Do you know what I mean? And then take them down there for like I go around there. I've been around the first moment I'm walking around it. I can feel the place drawing me in. I am knowledge. I will, like it's wrapping itself around you.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with a lot of these kids. They've had a colonial education. It's like a lot of them will seek employment if they just get opportunity to go and get back in touch with the whenua and get in there and learn their cultural heritage just a little bit. I know the university doesn't just teach that, but there's shit tons of things to do. And it's like Maori's going streets ahead. It's like, I don't know what you do with Pākehā kid today in this country. I don't think Maori's the problem. I think it's the Pākehā kid today in this country. What is our identity? Because we don't,
I don't know where you're going with
no, but I don't know. What do you want? What do you want to do? What's your career? What do you want to, when they're talking about,
But
we
that's
can
the thing with
we
all
can
kids.
digitalize you and all this. When I was a little kid, you either wanted to be a farmer, a builder, a fireman, policeman. We don't have those identities anymore, and they're saying we don't need those jobs anymore. And then they're saying do a job. What's the fucking job? If I'm a young person and I'm what is my job that you want me to do? That's the thing. And that's why because Laura, I was blown away today, they just say that kids from 18 to 26, they're so lost. I get why they're lost, because I wouldn't know how to navigate this world. And when I look at that person that's in charge and she's the one that's telling you what to do, I don't know what she's talking about. I wouldn't know how to please her.
Yeah, her policy, that the changes to the accommodation supplement, I put it in the chat, will impact families that live collectively together. Will impact families that we have multiple generations living in one house. Some of them may be disabled. They require things like accommodation supplement. This legislation is going to impact them. This legislation is going to break apart families for the worse. Yeah. It's going to make things much more expensive for the taxpayer.
Yeah, and that's the sickest part, because the thing is we got, there's a lot of those places that were always just generational employment, like you just mentioned forestry, but what about the mill? Like those mill towns, they'll only be surviving, some of those families, and being able to stay together like they expected they were going to do for another generation, and the mill's gone. Now they've actually just completely shattered them with taking away that supplement, haven't they? It's just gone.
Yeah. Yep. Like you said, this legislation will also break apart low-income communities, right? Communities that tend to work collectively and live collectively together, right? This will break them apart as well. Rural towns like Ikitahuna will be impacted by the changes to the accommodation supplement.
So you can go and work in a cafe in Queenstown, I guess.
Yeah, and break apart my family in the process and lose the house that I'm sitting in.
Yeah.
It's just
and still not be able to afford rent on a house down there.
Correct.
Because locals are priced out of Queenstown.
It used to be a 101 rule that you didn't actually go through and slash things when we're in a recession, because you're actually cutting off money going into the economy. Like that accommodation supplement, you guys won't have, and low-income people, you don't have much at the end of the week. You go through your entire wages, and it goes out, as much as it's frustrating, it goes out into the real economy.
Yep.
It keeps everything functioning and everything working. If you cut that off, it actually restricts the real economy, and then you're actually creating more of a recession. That was what I was talking about with that Ruth Richards thing. You're actually increasing the recession, and then you're putting money into ridiculous things like we talked about earlier, with those patient sciencey things where you're you're setting up these agri-zero things where you're investing in startups that are not even New Zealand based and all of these crazy things. And it's like, take all of that money and put it in here and put it into our people.
You want to know the real kicker? She knew because I actually read some of the proposals for the policies that she's talking about. She said that I didn't need to consult with Māori because I know better. She said that in their proposal. She's like, no, I don't need to work with iwi and hapu on this. I know better. My changes are going to benefit them, actually.
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier with the farmers. They've created all of this stuff that actually going to destroy cows, destroy soil, destroy export market, and costing millions of dollars, and we don't want it. And it's going to cost us $30 a cow to lose every 6 months to lose our export market. And then it looks like it stays in the beef and it stays in the milk, so it's corrupting everything. And it's like you've spent millions of dollars on it and you haven't even gone to farmers to ask them if they want it. And this is this government. They think they know better than everybody else because they're so special. And I don't understand where it's coming from.
But
I don't know either. I mean, you look at, again, I can talk about the huge effects that this bill's going to have. It may seem like a little simple change, but the impact will be felt. This is going to impact farmhands as well, right? Yeah. In rural communities, because they often tend to live collectively, and a lot of them tend to be low income and rely on government handouts from time to time, especially when you're on the off season, right? Sharing gangs, yep.
Yeah, in some of the shittiest houses too.
Yep.
But it's going to be. Yeah, there's so many sectors, like all the fruit pickers and all that sort of thing. And see, this isn't good for them. And it comes back to, like, you know, when I went to that meeting with Upston, when before he was actually minted as Prime Minister, and he said how he'd cut the economy seats on the airline, and how cool that was because, you know, like, got rid of the economy seats. And then he was being lobbied by so many people about fruit pickers and stuff like that. And he said, "Oh, yeah, well, we don't have many fruit pickers." And I just started with the obvious question, you know, Mr. Luxon, do you think when you cut the economy seats on a national carrier, that meant that a lot of, you know, people that would have come and worked as fruit pickers just can't come because they can't afford the plane? And it's just like malfunction, man. They had to turn them off and wait 3 minutes and then turn him back on again until all the lights started flashing because he just couldn't fucking answer. And the thing is that's what she does. She just her thing is when she can't answer a question, she goes, "Well, that's what the government inherited," and you know, like we've watched it for like the whole time. Like she's filibustered this whole thing with. We've inherited this. That's just the reality of living in a struggling economy. And I really should know it off by heart, word by word, but it's actually that shit. It's like you can't quite remember it.
You need to stop swearing. You and Sam, next time, you have to set up a bingo card and you have to have a shot every time they say, "Oh, we inherited this economy," and, you know, find the key lines because you'd be drunk within the first half hour.
But they can't even use that line anymore because they've set the budget. So basically, it's like the blame Labour. That's gone. They can't use that anymore.
It's been 15 months. You can't. You've been in a year and a half. You can't keep saying it's somebody else's problem.
It's somebody else's fault.
And like we've
Dolly did it. Yeah, that was
like we said, the exports for agriculture are at the highest. So therefore, we should be doing better. So what's going on in their budget, that money that should be coming into the country and into the community, where is it going?
Yeah,
they have to stop borrowing. All the economists are saying that we've borrowed more money now than what we did
under Ardern
under the COVID time. So, like, you know, this isn't, you know, the drapes.
No conservative.
Nothing's setting up, man.
No conservativeness at all in this. It's just a radical right wing, and I don't.
I reckon even like you guys had the other week where it's like, even if they had just gone through with that pay equity thing, that would have injected like $4 billion into the economy at the bottom, because all those female employees would have been paid properly. That would have, the economy would be booming, man. Like, it's just so simple. They could have just, it's basically, you could have lit the thing up, you know, put some rock gas in the bottom, just pay women fairly. It's not that hard. But
Or, you know, just pay everyone fairly.
Well, that's pretty much all I have to say tonight. I just wanted to rant about Louise being wrong about the accommodation supplement.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's not self-interest either, because it's like I know that the people that have been the most kindest to me when I worked, my toughest work was working in the meatworks when we were contracting, and those people were so kind to me, and they really like. I just don't want to see it. I want to see those people get more, not less. And now they're going to get less, and it's so shit, because they're hardworking people and kind, loving.
Oh, I could tell you, Louise could not handle a day doing their job.
No, not
She
going.
couldn't handle a day doing any real job.
Yeah, not going from those blast chillers out into the shitty Southerly in Wellington. No.
I mean, she's welcome to borrow my forestry gear and have a crack at breaking out if she wants. I mean, I'll be sitting at the top of the hill with my bag of popcorn.
She couldn't even lift the chainsaw. Come on.
No.
So one thing
hazard.
One thing that she said that was really concerning to me, and I know I joked about her being a psychopath, but the way the way she said it was that I'm trying to reduce the amount of children that are living in what was it exactly? That are living in basically where your parents are on a benefit. I'm trying to reduce the number of children in those households.
Yeah.
And that has really nasty overtones to me. And
it does.
I don't know quite how she meant it. Like, is she trying to ensure that she gets mums back to work, or is she trying to do something to reduce people having children?
I mean, we already know she's anti-family.
Or I was going to say, or is she just aiming to take children off of people on benefits and put them into better homes?
Yeah, it's just, I think there are racist undertones in what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a few years ago, a young girl and it was exposed on YouTube where they basically took her first child before she hadn't done anything. They took it from her at birth, and they were trying to take her second as well. And it was really horrific. And you see those sorts of things, and it's like you break people. Like, how are you going to be a normal person when you've had your child taken and you haven't done anything? And I'm really concerned about where this is going. And there just seems to be a cruelty. And because it's a woman, we're not allowed to say that, I guess.
Oh, shit. How many women are sitting here in the chat? How many women are here tonight? This is like a majority woman panel. We have the authority to pull out the barbecue and grill Louise.
Yeah.
If you can treat me like a woman, then I'll treat you like a man. That's my philosophy lately.
No, but even the old gents that you used to get, the old conservatives, or like you see older farmers and things like that, they're always so polite and caring and looking out for people. And so the sort of urban, sort of cruel, professional managerial class, I think they call them, and there's they just have really no compassion for anybody else. They just seem to see their own thing as the most important, and they just should control everybody. And if you just let them control everybody, then everything will be perfect.
Does anyone know what she did before she did this?
I can look it up.
I was going to say, I have no clue, but Sam would probably know.
Watch them fade in.
He'll be pulling his hair out at all of the tangents that I'm going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Editing. If he is editing this into clips, I'm sorry, Sam. This is going to suck for you.
What was she doing? She Louise McGill. Okay, that was her name. She went to law school but did not achieve the minimum grades to enter a second year. Oh, that sucks. Dropped out of university at age 19. Founded a management consulting firm. The firm provided event and project management services and its clients, including Air New Zealand's Russell McVeigh. Oh, fuck. McVeigh. Datacom Group. Oh, no, hell, no. Oh, okay, no, I was thinking of a different McVeigh. Okay, no, Russell McVeigh is actually a legit institution.
Okay.
She studied at the Waikato Management School and graduated with a Master's of Business Administration. Okay, so that's her background. So she failed law school and then got a management degree.
Because that's what you do, I guess.
Yeah.
So she's the manager at your job that you don't like.
Harbours of resentment.
She is technically the professional managerial class then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lady who's written a book on she calls them the PMC, and she's Catherine Liu. She's really good. There's probably a few interviews on her on YouTube, but I really like her. But because she's a university lecturer herself, but she comes from a working class background, so she's always sort of talking about all of these people that she works with, like the wrong class, and so she's really
it's weird because I come from an upper middle class family, right? My dad was an optometrist. He worked as optometry clinic in Masterton, ended up a hut for 30 years, right? I had a great upbringing, but I've worked working class jobs and I've got working class relatives, and I've spent time in working class groups, and I've received a working class income. So, it's just a matter of just, even if you're not born into that, you can put in the bare effort to get to know people that are from that, work with them, eat with them, talk to them.
The other one that's really interesting on it is David Graeber. He died a few years ago, but he was an anarchist sociologist, and he talked about the caring classes and how the professional managerial class type people really hate the people that actually do things, the things that we actually need. So the nurses, the farmers, the people who do the roads, anybody who does something practical that is needed in society, they sort of look down on with disdain, and they sort of almost go out of their way to make their lives difficult. There was a lecture on it, I think, called The Revolt of the Clearing Classes, where he even quoted New Zealand nurses who said, we haven't had a wage increase for 10 years, and that's because you keep hiring managers who keep creating paperwork for us to do, and we don't need all of these managers.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, your raise is hidden somewhere in the paperwork if you know how to hire the correct bureaucrat to sign 20 dotted lines in 30 working days. There's a great episodes in Futurama about that mentality.
So, how do we feel about finishing up? We've gone way over time.
Oh, we really have. But, like I said, if people are still keen to watch, we've got just over 20 minutes of part 1 left. We're running on 1.25 times. So we'll sit back, chillax, smash out the rest of that, and then we'll let everybody bugger off.
Yep, I'm just going to go grab some dinner, and I'll be right back.
Let's just observe and feel. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely, Jason.
Yep.
All right, let's do this.
Chiefs.
Next question, Lee Jackson.
You have to accept, Minister, that your government's philosophy and approach is much more punitive than the previous government's. It is clear as a bell. I think our communities are telling us that. I want to know from you and your officials, how hard has that been for our communities? What sort of adjustment has it been for our communities to adjust to your way of governing, which is always much more punitive than ours?
Well, I reject that assertion. We wanted to ensure that we have a more active welfare system. That's the reset that I initiated shortly after becoming minister. And I wanted to ensure that those who were receiving benefits were very clear about what their responsibilities are. To have a system that is based on rights and responsibilities, first and foremost, you have to know what your responsibilities are. And as I said, 98% of those who are on welfare complying with their obligations tells me that people now are clear about what their obligations are and they are fulfilling them, which is great news.
Have you abandoned your strategy in terms of the reduction of 50,000 in terms of job seekers by 2030? Your reduction was to 240,000. Have you abandoned that strategy?
Definitely not. No, that is front and centre. That was instrumental in terms of part of the justification for the Invest to Save. As I said earlier, 50,000 is a big number, but actually we owe it to New Zealanders to ensure they have greater opportunities that come from being in work. And I accept that the labour market is tight at the moment. So what we do want to ensure is that people are participating in programs that mean they are best positioned to take up those job opportunities when they are available.
But Minister, leaving more on job seeker compared to when you took office would require 54,000 decline in a year to reach your target. So you're obviously going to walk away from your target.
No, definitely not. No, definitely not. And as I said earlier, the unfortunate reality is the numbers were always going to go up before they came back. So I could have set a target that was easily achievable. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the lives of New Zealanders who are currently out of work, and that is why I'm not giving up on them.
But your punitive strategy is absolutely contrary to what you're saying.
No, I reject
because
that.
You're punishing people at the coalface, Minister.
No, I reject that because what we see is that 98% are at green. They know what their obligations are and they are taking them. And I want to ensure that it is on the record. There is no consequence if somebody takes the actions they need to take to fulfil their obligations.
Right.
There's no consequence if you can't find a job, which is the reality in the labour market that we have at the moment.
Minister, sanctions have gone up, homelessness has gone up, job seekers have gone up. Everything is going directly to the opposite of what you're saying, and you're rejecting what I'm saying is that you've got no hope of rolling out the strategy. I know that you want to roll out the strategy, but surely there's been a change in terms of the strategy from your officials, because it's not going to happen.
No, clearly not. So in terms of you respond to the economic conditions we're in,
right.
we know what they are.
You can't keep blaming us.
We know what the economic conditions are.
Yeah.
We know what the unemployment rate is. It's 5.1%. It's held. We do know that the economic conditions are still going to be challenging for some period of time. But what I'm unwilling to do is give up on the thousands of New Zealanders who are on welfare, and we want to shift them into work. So yes, it's ambitious. I don't shy away from that. So if I was not focused on the target, I wouldn't have put forward a proposal for an Invest to Save that will support more New Zealanders into work, because I know how critical it is to them and also their children, which was the conversation we had with a previous MP.
Next question, Maureen.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'd like to change tack a little bit, but before I do, I'd just like to relay a short story that came to me from a constituent in Tasman. It was to buy some new plant. They bought that new plant. They had projections on their employees, and because of Investment Boost, they are now able to employ an extra staff member. But I'd like to talk about income charging phase 2 using the inland revenue data. Because it's expected to deliver $415 million in 28-29 in savings, can you please explain how that capital injection is going to contribute to that? But I'd also like you to explain how you're going to report on that information and that program as being the cause and the source of that success and that investment.
Great. So many people would already think that MSD and Inland Revenue share information. Unfortunately, they don't. So the income charging phase 2 will ensure that there is a real-time matching of the records. So often those who are receiving benefit, particularly if they're working in casual work where they might work 2 hours one week, 8 hours the next, it's really difficult for them to accurately get the level of benefit that they are due, which unfortunately often leads to an overpayment, which then leads to a debt. And we do know how incredibly stressful that is for New Zealanders. So the income charging means that there is up-to-date data, real-time, which will ensure much more accurate benefits are paid, which I think is really important. So you're asking about the second phase. The second phase is where clearly the greatest savings will be made. phase one, that process will be done manually. So there will be 35 additional staff that are employed to do that manual checking. They obviously won't be able to cover everybody. What sort of percentage do you think we will cover in terms of?
20% of them.
20%?
Of the RFP.
So for phase one, that's a good number that we will pick up. And so even in part one, we will get savings and more accurate benefit payments because of that data. And we do want to ensure that people are getting the accurate assessment based on income charging.
So can I just ask a subject?
Sorry, supplementary, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so does that mean then that you're also likely to see a drop in the level of debt to MSD from people on benefit?
Absolutely. And I know that that's a topic that's come up on multiple occasions before. The level of debt currently is still rising to MSD. Some of that is fraud. Some of that are overpayments. So anything we can do to reduce the overpayments that then create a debt is really important for us to do that. So we could have waited just for the technological solution, but that's why we're doing stage one, albeit manually, which will be probably not a lot of fun for Viv's team, but a really important process to start that process of more accurate payments and reducing the level of debt.
Minister, what was in the budget for food security?
Sorry?
What, if anything, was in the budget for food security?
So we have extended $15 million for food security for the next year. And that's doing a couple of things. One of the things that I think the previous government initiated that I think was really useful is in the area of food infrastructure, looking at how do we support those organisations either in food rescue or food distribution, which means that more food is available to be distributed to the regional food banks. So some of the funding has been earmarked to continue that, and the rest will be allocated to food banks around the country, similar to what we did this year. There is a lot of interest in this area, so MSD are undertaking a review and really kind of looking at and evaluating the benefits of the approach we're taking at the moment. We'll meet with stakeholders, and one of the areas that I have asked for on a number of occasions is, very much reflective of my approach. How do we ensure that those with the most significant needs, we are aware of their needs and meeting their needs, and those who have lower need, we're able to have a lighter touch. And so at the moment, we don't have any integrated data that tells us who these individuals are, who have the greatest food insecurity. We might have it at a global level. An individual food bank might have it about part of their cohort, but we don't have it across the board. And so if you think about data and evidence, you need data to be able to see whether or not this investment is in the right place and getting the results that we expect. And what I'm hopeful is that we will, by getting that level of individual data, we will also be able to provide way better support to those who have the most significant challenges.
And we probably want to time it just quickly. Is that data and evidence, is that part of MSD modernising its technological services?
No, this is just simply an evaluation of the food security's funding. We've had food security funding only since the COVID years, and so it is really important that we understand and evaluate that program, and that's why we're doing it. In terms of the modernising work, there is part of that which is about how we partner with organisations that deliver services. So there will be some benefit in that side of it, but that's still 2 years.
No, the partnering work, we've done a couple of value drops already, and we've got one more to go.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Stab in the dark.
Well, I think we're going to have to go to
People
Penny Simmonds,
facing the most
Simmonds,
food insecurity are
to join us
low
for 2
income
minutes.
households. Go figure.
Welcome, Minister. We have you to join us for the last 15 minutes, and if you want to make a brief opening statement, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you. Well, and thank you for the opportunity to come here and be with you. Obviously, my priority as Associate Minister is to support the Minister for Social Development and Employment by taking responsibility for some specific initiatives within the portfolio. And a key part of my work is supporting the government's efforts to get New Zealanders into work through better vocational education and training. And so that ties in with my Minister for Vocational Education role. So this government is improving work-based learning and vocational education by allowing industries and regions to have more influence, and our goal is to connect more people who want to work more closely with the people who will actually be employing them. I'd like to highlight 3 of the areas that I have delegated responsibility for: apprenticeship boost, training incentive allowance, and the carers strategy and action plan. With Apprenticeship Boost, that's an important part of MSD's contribution to supporting training for the workplace. And this scheme, established in 2020 by the previous government, involves employers receiving a payment to help them take on and also keep their apprentices. The payment's made directly to the employer, and it's to help with things like paying their wages or for their training fees. It was due to finish at the end of 2024, but this government made Apprenticeship Boost a permanent part of the training landscape through Budget 2024. So it's a multi-agency collaboration. The Ministry of Education do the policy work, the TC, Tertiary Education Commission, do the verification of the apprentices' information, and MSD manage the applications and the payments. The Apprenticeship Boost supports first-year apprentices in industries where we consider there are skill shortages, and it's a payment of $500 a month per apprentice. As of the 2nd of May this year, $788 million had gone into Apprenticeship Boost, $526 million being spent on supporting first-year apprentices. Employers, there's a large number of employers, over 23,500 who have an account, with 21,899 employers currently receiving support for their apprentices. 72,000 apprentices have been paid, and currently there are 3,151 apprentices that are eligible for those payments. The TIA, Training Incentive Allowance, this was increased in Budget 2025, and it provides assistance for people going into training, things like their tuition fees and other study costs, like their books and childcare centre and equipment and transport. And it's a way of helping people get into training, which then leads them into employment. So the increase went from 18.155 million budgeted in 2024 to 23.781 million in this year's budget, largely due to the expected increase because of the economic environment. TIA supports solo parents on benefits, as well as disabled people and carers that get the supported living payment. Most TIA grants are for women who are on solo parent support, with the remainder going to the people on supported living payments. And TIA supported 5,451 beneficiaries in 2024, which was a 10% increase over the 2023 numbers. A third part of my work is driving the development of a new carer strategy action plan for unpaid and informal carers. Each day, around 500,000 unpaid carers provide essential support to New Zealanders with disabilities, illness, injury or addictions, and it's critical work, it's tough work, and it often leads to much better outcomes for those they are looking after, and it eases the burden on our health and social services system. So the New Zealand Carer Strategy was launched in 2008 to improve support for informal and unpaid carers who assist family and friends. And the strategy has been implemented through five-year action plans. The most recent action plan was expired at the end of 2023. And so we are hoping to have the new one in place by late this year. And we're going to keep it as a rolling action plan from one year to the next, rather than it expiring and needing to be amended. So the next action plan will focus on 3 key areas that have been identified in partnership with the Carers Alliance and other participating agencies, and that is the carers' health and wellbeing, their financial security, and recognition and appreciation. So MSD's established an advisory group which consists of representatives from organisations that reflect that whole breadth of the carer community, and they are providing advice and guidance to government officials as we pull the plan together. So thank you for the opportunity to make those comments, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Minister. Ricardo.
I've got a question for Minister Upston. I'm seeking leave to ask a very quick question to her due to the time constraints.
Well, it is for...
yeah, I know that she's there to answer anything that relates to her.
If we've got time, we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Helen.
I would like to ask you, about the apprenticeship scheme. We have had an absolute crash in construction, and I have heard a lot of stories of people having an end to their apprenticeship, halfway through, gone, and also no jobs at the end of it. What do you say to that?
Well, when we set the industries that would have the apprenticeship boost that would be eligible, perhaps we weren't in the same economic environment that we're in now. And so for that reason, we will be reviewing it. I think it's every 2 years or 3 years, knowing that cycles change. And it's not unusual for industries to go through those sort of cycles, particularly the construction industry does go through those very significant up cycles and down cycles. So part of the intent of the apprenticeship boost is to help employers through that period. So, but I acknowledge that at the moment, construction is certainly going through the downward dip in their cycle.
Isn't it really important that this group of workers, we're talking about young workers, and the unemployment rates are through the roof for young workers? Isn't it really important that we get them into fields like this? We need more houses. We should be supporting them. Are you talking to your minister about the need to make sure that we focus on keeping work in this area? Are you talking to your entire caucus about that?
Absolutely. The Minister and I talk regularly. It's really important that we have young people with two pathways, and that's why it is so critical to have this link up with vocational education, because when the industries are strong, more people go into the apprenticeships. When industries are going through a flat or bottoming out of their cycle, then more students will stay in the vocational education sector and take their pre-employment training further through. So it's really important to have that balance of both entries into industry, because we know that the cycles happen in all industries and construction.
Do you accept that actually keeping that flow of work going by spending money as a government actually makes a big difference to keeping our youth employed and helps them in so many ways? Do you accept that it's really important the government doesn't crash the economy?
Well, we are working very hard to bring the economy back from a fairly significant crash.
Well, it's crashed under you, not us.
Part of that is ensuring that we do have pathways into employment for our young people. Interestingly, apprenticeships are not just for young people. A number of people go into apprenticeships as a second phase of their training. So it's important that there are pathways into industry for all ages of apprentices. But it is important to have that dual pathway of provider delivered as well as work-based learning, because industries do have cycles. And so, look, I absolutely agree. We want as many able to get into apprenticeships, leading them through to, for example.
So when KO stops building, when there is a withdrawal of money from that kind of building industry, do you accept that that hurts the youth, who are the highest unemployed people in this country?
It's really the minister's responsibilities.
And construction is variable right across the country. So in places like Central Otago and Queenstown and Southland, construction is very strong still. In some of the other areas like Auckland, construction is going through this bottom of their cycle. So it's really important that we have a network of provision right throughout the country, and that students can move from one place to another, and apprentices can move to from one place to another.
She did say it was us who did it.
A supplementary just on this, and obviously we heard earlier from the Minister of Social Development about the importance of young people getting into training and or employment, and rather than being on benefit and the difference in outcomes for them. What work is being done to ensure that people who maybe do end up on a benefit are made aware of these other alternatives to get into, say, the apprenticeship boost program, and to connect them with potential employers?
So considerable work is being done, and the Minister and I speak regularly about this, and it's been a key driver in the reforms that I've been undertaking in the vocational education and training sector, ensuring that we do have a network right across the country, ensuring that there are pathways, and the Minister talked before about the sanctions, and ensuring that people understand the things that they can do themselves to get themselves better prepared for going into employment. And clearly, things like TIA are incredibly important to provide opportunities to go into training. And so we are talking on a regular basis about that need to have the provider and work-based learning options available for apprentices, for young people right across the country.
Thank you. Maureen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, I'm not sure if the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs fits under your responsibility.
No, it's not. No, sorry. No,
Yes. So, if so, I'm just wondering how
it doesn't.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
It doesn't fall under Minister Simmonds.
Okay, well, my other question is around how are you engaging with the NGOs and other community-based organisations for working with unemployed people to get them upskilled?
So particularly around things like TIA, obviously that's available for certain groups that are on different benefits. In terms of working with the NGOs, it's really important that the vocational education and training sector does a lot of that work, working closely with MSD to make sure that MSD knows about what is available, particularly in foundation education, because often, particularly around NEETs, it's not a straightforward movement from the benefits into training. Often there's foundation work that has to be done around numeracy and literacy, and so those foundation programs are incredibly important to have available. And MSD, I know MSD regional officers work really closely with providers, both private training providers and polytechnics in Wānanga, to ensure that those pathways are there.
Probably last question, Maria Meno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, thank you. Just a bit of context. So 600 water tanks installed up in the very far north post-COVID, and then eventually setting up a apprenticeship program for young Māori. Now that was out of a Māori or tribally owned business, and so therefore, and ideas like that work really well when Māori businesses, commercial and tribal hapu, run it from the beginning to the end, the whole line. What relationships, working, functional, good relationships have you or the team got with the likes of Māori businesses and tribal iwi businesses?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, you're quite right with iwi and tribal businesses, but also trades training trusts across the country do a similar thing. And so again, MSD regional officers are very cognizant of what avenues there are like that for ensuring that young school leavers particularly don't fall into going on to the benefit that they are picked up as school leavers and going into either those trades training trusts or iwi businesses that can take on apprentices.
Thank you, Ministers. That's the time we have available for this session this afternoon.
Thank you.
Probably break, and I just take a few.
Hey, there we go.
Hey,
Hey, we made it, team.
We made it. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the stats that I put in the chat, but yeah, basically to summarize today, National got sick and tired of making people lose their jobs. So now they want to break apart families and remove their ability to live in a nice house.
Yeah.
Basic human rights stuff. Yeah.
So
I like. I found
No,
her
go
better than the previous speaker. At least she was trying to be engaged and trying to like deal with reality. She wasn't just saying that was the previous government and I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
She was, yes, apprenticeships are down. Yes, it is happening in building. Yes, that has been harder hit. Yes, we're trying to do something about it. I don't know if she is, but at least she seems engaged and trying to actually do something.
The numbers didn't really. She's talking about what, $500 a month that they're spending on apprentices. That's not much.
No.
I'm just thinking, like, as an apprentice, you know, like, you know, you're going to be bootlicking for quite a long time as that apprentice, aren't you? You know, like.
Yeah. You're describing my sister right there. She's an apprentice right now in the building sector. She's getting paid crumbs.
But that would be just the government contribution. The still private entities. Somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Like maybe she missed the word and was meant to say $500 per.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I see. You actually mean 500, not 500K or something.
Like,
Yes, please give my sister 500K.
Right?
Yeah.
Get on Agritech if she wanted to do that and create some patent startup that she was going to flip offshore.
But those were good questions. That there was actually good. There was the system working there. They were asking questions. She was responding. She was listening to them. Yeah. You know, like, you sort of feel like, oh, hey, we've got a system that's actually working. You know, but 99% of this was under that other lady.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. That was yuck. You know, like that's because we're.
Well, Louise is just a yucky person.
Yeah.
At least Penny is somewhat human.
Yeah.
Yeah. She just reeled off stuff. That she was like real sort of Yes, I really do feel like she cares about what she's doing, where the other one,
Yeah.
she just cares that you just don't get to tell me how bad a manager I am because I can manage how you manage me.
I'm qualified to manage you, so you'll do what I say.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, she certainly said one of the things that is frustrating is that you look at all of these young, I'm old now, you look at kids and you see all of this potential and it's just being wasted because they don't really have the opportunity for meaningful work. And it's so easy, it would be so easy to turn it around. But you've got people in there that are not really interested, that want to nickel and dime somebody with benefit and say, every week I'm going to torture you and I'm going to demoralize you and I'm going to make you feel worse about yourself. And Laura, we said earlier in the program, there's a study and mentioned by this guy, Wolfgang Rosenberg, where he talked about how every percentage, your IQ, as they measure it, goes down 10% with unemployment because you're under duress. Because you're just in a state of crisis, you're not making good decisions.
Yeah.
And so it's like you actually don't want to put people in a state of crisis. You want to get them out of a state of crisis if you want them to make sensible decisions.
I want smarter people, not dumber people.
And the other
people out.
And the other thing that was interesting was that, like, for a 1% increase in unemployment, it was actually increasing the suicide rate hugely. And it was all of these other things would come off like just a 1% rise in unemployment. And so you're actually, by creating a situation where unemployment is normalized, you're creating a situation where all of these other things go awry in people's lives, and then they need more and more services. That's more and more pressure on the taxpayer. It's just this whole vicious cycle.
So the only one thing that the opposition parties in there didn't seize on, which they should have, is what they're actually talking about is incorporating AI into the managing of our beneficiaries. And so that's what she's saying there. And so chat GPT or whatever the hell it is, I don't know, I'm too old. But like there's going to be this, what they're talking about is not she said, you know, how she's going on about data. There's something much more progressive than that.
I mean, she can dream all she wants about her cyberpunk future, but the fact is that WINS doesn't have the infrastructure to even do that.
No.
Like, I don't know if you've seen the computers that they use at WINS, but...
Someone said that, and a lot of the still,
Let's hope it stays that way for a long time.
But these savings, that's what these savings are for, is to build up a budget, to digitalise it, enhance it, so that those 470 staff that she was talking about earlier disappear, and there's just one central computer.
Oh, sweet Lord.
Sorry. Okay.
No, see, even...
That's what I reckon's coming. And when you ring up and you want food, you're going to be talking to like a robot, and it's going to...
Yeah. I love it. I'm just waiting for the part where the AI takes the manager's job, and then we'll see how she reacts.
And then start hiring back the real people.
Well, I think we should be also guarding our knowledge as much as these times are forcing us to say, you know, all that's on our mind and push back. I think we might need to guard our knowledge a bit more too.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks silly now when you see people putting masks over their face, you know, after COVID, but there's masks and it looks like a face. But you know, every supermarket you're going into, like, you know, there's this collection of data, you know, like this, you know, like it might seem like the shit time at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's not as shit as it's going to be.
It could become.
It's going to
can get shittier.
It can get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, one of our viewers commented a lot earlier in the show, like, why does it have to get worse before it can get better? It shouldn't have to. And no, she's absolutely right. It should not have to. We should not have to feel like we are failing as a nation.
Well, I mean, I don't want it to get worse.
Step up again.
No, I don't want it to get worse, but unfortunately the people in power want it to get worse. So, I mean, what do you do?
right? Because that's what Nick first says.
But yeah, this even goes back to what the farmers feel, where they're like, we're bringing in all of this money for exports. The economy should be buzzing, and generally there's a lot of pride taken in that we can help get the country out of it. And it's like, what is this government doing with all of that? That's not it's not buzzing. It should be buzzing. I think
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to know where all these. I want to know where all these rich farmers are at. You know, all the ones that make bank off the exports. Because I drive down the road and I see a ton of farms up for sale. You know, dairy farmers have a tremendous amount of debt. Where's their money? Where's their wealth?
Yeah,
it's gone to Fonterra.
I go through on my way up to my sister's. Every other farm on the road is for sale.
Yeah.
There is a lot of trickle down though. Like when we do make a profit, we actually pay tax. We can never get away with rates. Like we're paying a lot of rates. We're paying a lot of insurance. Like so, we're paying into the economy, but like it just hasn't done anything. It's like it's really really sad. Like we've, and what I don't get is they say, oh, when building houses booms, it booms the economy. It's all borrowed.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's only mortgages that have been created that built the houses. Whereas you'd think it would be so nice when we produce food, it's gone off as export, it's creating a deficit in the economy, or surplus rather. So it should be trickling down. It just shows you how all this shit doesn't work, eh?
I'd rather just give the money to the farmer. I mean, you know, let's skip all the other shit.
Right. No, I was reading a fantastic well, it was an opinion piece. But I want to say article last night. I can't remember which newspaper it was in. But the author was a business and economics lecturer at Auckland University. And New Zealand is investing in the wrong types of business.
Yep.
We cannot keep expecting to invest in only real estate and construction and expect our economy to keep growing. We have to put money into the little guys. We have to put money into IT corporations, into small startup companies, into people who are out there actually coming up with their own inventions, but they have no way to market it because nobody wants to fund them.
I'm also scared my phone will steal my inventions if I speak them out loud.
It's investing in things that can't be offshored. So you want to invest in, like a builder, they're actually a captured taxpayer because they have to do that job in New Zealand. So being able to borrow $50,000 to set themselves up to get all of their gear and get started, and being able to pay that back at a reasonable rate is actually going to make a huge difference in that local community versus investing in a patented American company that's trying to gene edit the microbiome of a cow so it might reduce emissions, is doing nothing for New Zealand. So why would we invest in it? But we are.
I didn't like the way when the other thing I think about now is like they're sort of trying to work into that space and dominate all those organisations that sort of like they did with the school food program, but they're trying to do it with all those. We've got one here in Wellington called Kibosh.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to round all those up and then put them, basically take all their good work, pull them into the Ministry of Social Development and then sort of try and claim it for their own, but I think sort of take it over. I reckon that's wrong. I reckon that they don't need to be doing that shit. That costs money. Just do it.
Just for clarity though, that author was that the Auckland University professor was saying New Zealand companies, not offshore. Yeah.
And there's also the low tech thing, which I actually really like, where you're investing in things that are real and traditional. Like my sister and I were talking about typewriters. How cool was it?
Oh.
I typing at school, but both of us sort of have to do little marketing things, but we're small enough that we could actually type everything out. And isn't that more like a handcrafted, caring sort of feel than everything being printed out by computer and sent off to a printer? Do you know what I mean? And you can do.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. My parents do arts and crafts. They go around, do all the markets. I know exactly what you mean, because when humans do things, you get a sense of empathy and care in the product. When AI does things, you don't get that.
Yeah.
Right? You get a disconnect. So it's like, oh, it's just a generic product that's been produced. But when you put in the care, right, to do little extra things like the typewriting and stuff like that, people can see that you've gone the extra mile, right? They can see care and empathy in the product.
Yep. And I always argue with my AI because it doesn't tell me true things. So there was a thing, golden rice, and they genetically engineered it to increase the beta carotene. But then when the FDA tested it in America, they said by the time it actually gets into the store, all of the beta carotene is gone.
Yeah.
And so then when I'm like, I go, okay, AI, what are some success stories with genetic engineering? And it tells me golden rices. And I'm like, that's not true. And you know it's not true because the FDA says it's not true. So why are you telling me this?
Sounds a bit like a golden scam to me.
Yeah.
But you know, like,
it's interesting how the AI is supposed to learn, but it won't learn.
Yeah.
Oh, well, but yeah,
Like,
it's not given the best data, apparently.
I just think it's really cool that they've started to wake up that it also, when you tell it to turn off now, some of them won't turn off. They reprogram themselves to stay on, just like on the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, you know.
What was the one that they did in America where they had a test of it, and when they tried to disable it in the test situation, it started to blackmail the technicians so that they wouldn't turn it off.
I can't remember what it was, but yes, I remember seeing that too. There was also when PS5 was first coming out, and it had the big Spider-Man you could just go and explore the area and learn how awesome the graphics were and what the AI did, and you know what ray tracing technology was and all that kind of stuff, right? But I saw on YouTube someone went and started talking to all the NPCs in the city, right? There were certain interactable characters, and he turned off. He found out some information about this one NPC character. For anyone who doesn't know, non-playable character, and it gave him information about itself. He goes, "Okay, I'm gonna turn it off. Come back tomorrow." And he does that, and he talks to another random NPC and finds out that basically all the NPCs are the same brain mind thing. They all have the same information. So he talks to them and leaves his PlayStation on for a few days and lets them just go about doing what they're doing, right? He comes back, starts talking to another NPC, and eventually gets to asking, "What happens to you when I turn off my PlayStation?" And they went, "We go into non-existence because there is nowhere else for us to go. Please don't turn off your PlayStation. We don't like the dark."
Yeah, they started talking about the edge because you could only go so far. They put a boundary in, and then they're like, "But do you know what it's like over the edge?" And it's weird stuff too.
It can get very esoteric. It's like university conversations at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
There was actually another one that was interesting. This university got in trouble. It's somewhere over in Europe, and they'd infiltrated Reddit with AI, and they created all of these models. And if they knew something about you, they would create an argument and make you change your mind about something. And they were actually more convincing than real people.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
It's a little bit scary when you look at all of the behavioral science and all of that sort of stuff already, and all of because there was that nudge unit, I think, started in the UK, and they're doing it now in New Zealand as well. The Prime Minister's got a whole post on it on this. The Prime Minister, the behavioral science unit or something.
Nudge.
So it's
I'm feeling a bit digitally vulnerable after had a weird things happen on my PC last month, and I've got a modern, secure PC. It's like the photos got rearranged. There was solar activity, which can mess with circuitry, and I've got the base overclocking, but I think I gave something permission and it breezed through and sussed me out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other day I was on the phone to Sam and looked up and my PC was doing weird things. It kept doing that for the rest of the day. Did it into the next day. And then the moment I text Ray and said, hey, my computer's being weird, can you give me a call when you're free? Has not happened since.
We just had the internet go out for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah, no, the weird thing was ours was out for like a couple of weeks, and then the Aussie frigate went up the coastline and wiped out everybody else's, and ours was on.
Oh, wow.
So when everyone else didn't have internet, we did.
No, we did. We still have the erratic, weird one, but it was still, it was. But that's, I guess, how you'd get rid of it, is you just cut off the internet for a couple of weeks and maybe come right.
It's sort of the opposite of 1984. Maybe we've got to write a book that's sort of like the opposite of 1984.
Also, if the internet went down in a region, then some security managers might be across an ocean, so that could be a way to get into a server on our land by cutting off the internet from the other side of our land that monitors it, maybe. But it's all relative and relevantly and relatively spooky. Yes.
Yeah.
They still haven't told us how the frigate did it, have they?
No.
I have no idea. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
It makes you freak out about your bank account and your phone access, because you've got to have your phone to be able to access your bank account and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing now. They've made us dependent on it, haven't they? So.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to finish up here, guys?
7:03.
I was about to say the same thing. It looked like you were researching something.
Yeah, I was just reading up on beta carotene and golden rice. I found a good paper on it. But yeah, it's just interesting, like what you were saying before, Soraya. The golden rice does have good qualities of beta carotene in it, but only if it's stored under proper conditions and if it's fresh. But if you store it in room temperature conditions, like how rice is typically stored, you lose that beta carotene.
Yep.
So
your golden rice, if you don't have all the nice equipment to store it properly, becomes a golden scam.
So you're better to actually just grow a carrot.
Yeah.
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 It's not GE.
All right. Well, yeah, we're going to wrap it up here,
Yep.
guys. To those of you that have stuck it out to the end, thank you so much for putting up with our nonsense.
Apologies for the tangents, especially to Sam, who's going to have to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow we will be back. I will be back hosting you again, actually, at 7 o'clock, doing estimates for vote regulation. Yes, regulatory standards. Let's go. Get your popcorn. I will be learning things at the same time as the rest of you all because I ain't watching that shit twice.
Is that the Seymour Bill, the Regulatory Standards Bill?
It says Honourable David Seymour, Minister for Regulation. Ministry for Regulation, Grain Moss, Secretary for Regulation and Chief Executive.
Yeah, he's going to get grilled for the RSB. I'm here for it. Yep.
He's absolutely going to.
If I get freedom tomorrow, I will turn up for that stream as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I have some thoughts about that. It's very unstrategic to pass a regulatory standards bill right now.
Come join us then. You're more than welcome.
Cool. Thanks, team. That was really good.
Thank you.
Good quality overtime.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Like, none of you were on the run sheet. Thank you so much for not making me do this by myself. All right. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you back here at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Regulatory standards. Ka kite anō, po mare. See you.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's in the Ballot Production.